The gym went dead silent. Not the polite kind of quiet, the held breath kind, the kind where 40 people forget to blink. A mop handle hit the floor. A middle-aged janitor, bad knee, worn uniform, nobody worth looking at twice, stepped through the ropes of a professional ring and faced a 26-year-old undefeated kickboxing champion who had just spit on his clean floor. The champion threw his hardest punch. The janitor didn't block it. He didn't dodge it. He redirected it, 1 inch, 1 pivot, and the champion's face met the canvas before anyone in the room processed what they had just witnessed. Nobody laughed anymore. Nobody moved. Because something in that quiet man's eyes told every person in that building that they had been looking at him wrong this entire time. If you've never subscribed to this channel, now is the moment. Hit that button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city or country you're watching from. I want to see exactly how far this story travels. You will not want to miss what comes next. The gym smelled like old rubber and iron and effort that had nowhere else to go. That was the first thing Cole Mercer noticed the morning they hired him. Not the championship banners hanging from the exposed ceiling beams, not the gleaming heavy bags lined up like soldiers along the east wall, not even the professional ring sitting dead center under industrial floodlights bright enough to wash out shadows. He noticed the smell. Rubber, iron, sweat soaked so deep into the concrete that no amount of cleaning solution was ever going to fully pull it out. He'd worked in worse places. He'd been in worse places. He signed the employment forms without reading them carefully, which he knew was a bad habit, and handed them back to the front desk girl. Marcy, her name tag said, early 20s, tired eyes, who looked at him the way people always looked at him when he first showed up anywhere, like they were trying to figure out if he was going to be a problem. "Start Monday?" she asked. "I can start now," Cole said. She blinked. It was a Thursday afternoon. "Okay," she said, like she wasn't sure if that was good or strange, and handed him a gray uniform shirt. That was 6 weeks ago. Ishkat. He'd moved Emma and himself to Denton 3 months before the gym job, settling into a 2-bedroom apartment on Claremont Street that was 11 minutes from her school if traffic cooperated and 14 if it didn't. He'd done the calculation on foot first, then timed it twice by car. Old habit. He couldn't stop measuring distances, couldn't stop calculating exit routes and choke points and sight lines, even when all he was doing was taking his daughter to get groceries. Emma was 12, and she had her mother's eyes, and she didn't know how much that cost him every single morning when she looked up from her cereal bowl and asked if he'd slept okay. "Fine," he always said. "You've got that face again," she always answered. "What face?" "The one where you're thinking about 17 things and pretending you're thinking about 0. He'd smile then. A real one. The kind nobody at the gym ever saw. Her name was Sarah. His wife. She'd been gone 4 years, a brain aneurysm that came out of nowhere on a Tuesday afternoon while Emma was at school, and Cole was stateside between deployments for the first time in 8 months. There was nothing to prepare for, no mission brief, no intelligence, nothing. She'd been making coffee. That was the last thing she'd been doing when the lights went out. Cole had survived 3 combat deployments, 2 helicopter crashes, and a direct firefight in a building that was actively collapsing around him. He did not survive losing Sarah gracefully. He did not survive it at all, in the ways that mattered. He just kept moving because Emma needed him to keep moving, and so he did. 1 foot, then the other. That's all it ever was. The gym job was good because it was quiet work with predictable hours, and it kept his hands busy. The brain stayed calmer when the hands had something to do. He'd learned that in recovery, not the kind with 12 steps, though he'd done that too, for a year after Sarah, because the whiskey had gotten comfortable in a way that scared him. He meant physical recovery. After Mosul. After what happened to his knee in the alleyway behind the market that nobody with clearance below a certain level ever needed to know about. He mopped. He fixed things. He replaced light bulbs and tightened bolts, and once spent 2 hours recalibrating the ventilation system because it was throwing the air wrong and he couldn't leave it alone once he'd noticed. The gym's owner, a thick-necked Bulgarian named Petrov, who'd immigrated in the 90s and built the place from nothing, had found Cole under the ventilation unit at 7 in the morning and stared at him for a long moment. "You're not on the clock yet," Petrov said. "I know," Cole said, from somewhere inside the access panel. Petrov looked at the clipboard Cole had left on the floor, a hand-drawn diagram of the airflow problem with 2 proposed solutions and their respective costs sketched out in ballpoint pen. He didn't say anything else. He just picked up the clipboard, looked at it for a while, and walked away. After that, Petrov didn't write him about anything. He also didn't ask questions, which Cole appreciated more than the man would ever know. Dylan Cross arrived at Blackstone Combat Academy every morning like a weather system moving in. You felt him before you saw him. The parking lot got louder. The front door opened with too much force. Conversation died in the lobby the way it dies when someone walks in and everyone already knows who holds the most space in the room. He was 26 years old, 6'1", built like a Roman statue someone had given a bad attitude. He'd been undefeated at regional level for 3 years running and was in serious conversation with a promoter about a step up to national competition. The trophies lined an entire wall in the back hallway, and Dylan walked past them every single morning with the practiced indifference of someone who'd arranged to have them placed there himself. He trained hard. Cole would give him that. The kid put in the hours, didn't coast on talent, and had the kind of cardio engine that only came from years of misery and discipline. But there was something wrong in the way he trained, something Cole noticed the first week. He fought beautiful. Every combination was polished, every stance textbook, every kick thrown with perfect mechanical form. He never made mistakes in practice, which meant he never learned to handle them in the real world. He also had a habit, subtle, maybe subconscious, maybe not, of throwing his weight around in the room. Not physically, usually, just atmospherically. He'd correct other fighters in front of their training partners with that particular tone that wasn't quite mockery, but landed the same way. He'd take up space at the water station and make people wait. He'd have conversations across the gym at a volume that told everyone they were welcome to listen, but not to respond unless addressed. Cole watched all of this, said nothing. It wasn't his business. He was there to clean. Chub. The incident happened on a Wednesday late afternoon when the gym was at its fullest. About 40 people across the floor, some sparring, some on bags. A small group gathered near the ring, watching Dylan work combinations with his training partner, Marcus, who was a decent fighter and a good enough person to know when to say yes and when to say nothing. Cole had just finished the locker rooms and was working the main floor, starting from the far end, moving the mop in the slow, methodical grid pattern that covered ground efficiently without missing corners. It was meditative, almost. He'd learned to like it. His knee ached the way it always ached by the afternoon, a dull industrial throb that lived just below the level of something he needed to do anything about. And the rhythm of the mop was easy on it. He was 2/3 through the floor when Dylan stepped out of the ring to get water. He stepped right over the section Cole had just finished, didn't look down, didn't look at Cole, left a trail of boot prints in the damp floor. Cole said nothing, turned back, remopped the section. Dylan walked back. Same path, same prints. Cole worked around him, then Dylan paused. Cole could feel it before he looked up. The specific quality of stillness that means someone has decided to perform. "You missed a spot," Dylan said. A few of the closer fighters glanced over. Cole didn't respond immediately. He looked at the floor, found the spot Dylan was pointing to, and moved the mop to cover it. "There," Cole said, without inflection. "There," Dylan repeated, mimicking the flatness, and a couple of people smiled. "You know, the trick to mopping is you actually have to try." He looked around like he expected more, and got it. A laugh from somewhere near the heavy bags, a couple of grins. Cole looked at him for the first time. Steady, no expression. "I'm trying," Cole said. "Doesn't look like it." Dylan tilted his head, performing for his audience now, fully committed. "What's your name, old man?" "Cole." "Cole." Dylan drew the word out. "You know what, Cole? I've seen the way you watch us train." He stepped a little closer, not threatening exactly, but deliberate. "You got something to say? Every time I'm on the floor, you're just—" He made a vague gesture, staring. "I'm working," Cole said. "Floor's right there." A beat. Dylan studied him, and for just a second something flickered. Not hostility, but something more like actual curiosity, like he'd expected the man to flinch or apologize and hadn't gotten either. Then he let it go. He turned back toward the ring, said something to Marcus that Cole couldn't hear, and Marcus laughed. Cole finished the floor. The moment the line got crossed happened 11 days later, and it started with a phone call. Cole was in the supply closet off the main corridor, pulling a fresh mop head from the storage shelf, when his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. Emma. School. His chest tightened the way it always did when her school called mid-afternoon. "Yeah," he answered. "Mr. Mercer? This is Mrs. Holloway from the front office at Eastbridge. Is she okay?" "She's fine. She's right here. There was a situation at lunch. She isn't hurt, but we'd like you to come in when you're able." "I'll be there in 20 minutes," Cole said. He was already calculating. Finish the supply closet, tell Petrov, get his jacket from the break room. He moved through the checklist mechanically, the way he'd been trained to triage priorities when things shifted unexpected. He stepped out of the corridor into the main floor and nearly walked into Dylan, who was coming off the bags, wrapping his hands with his teeth while simultaneously trying to check his phone. "Heads up," Cole said, stepping sideways. Dylan looked up, and something in Cole's expression, or maybe just his pace, registered. "You all right, janitor?" Cole almost kept walking. He did for 2 steps. Then he stopped. He turned. This was the thing about having spent years in environments where reading the room meant the difference between a mission completing and a mission ending in a body bag. Cole was very good at knowing when something needed to be addressed, and when walking away from it would cost more in the long run than facing it. He wasn't sure what made him stop. Maybe it was the word janitor. Not Cole. Not his name. Maybe he was just tired. "My name's Cole," he said, evenly. "You've used it before." Dylan blinked. Then slowly, a smile. The kind that knows it's winning. "Cole," he said, generous, like a gift. "My mistake, Cole." He looked at the guys near the bags. "You see this? The janitor's got a spine. Good for you, man." He started clapping, slow, 3 times. "Good. For you." The laughter that came wasn't loud, but it was enough. And then Dylan looked straight at Cole and he spit, deliberately, a clean arc. It landed 6 inches from Cole's left boot, on the floor he'd finished not 40 minutes ago. The room changed temperature. Even the people who'd been laughing a second ago went still, like they felt something shift that they couldn't fully name. Cole looked at the floor. Then he looked up at Dylan. His face gave nothing. That was the thing. That was what made several people in the room take a quiet step backward without understanding why. It wasn't anger in his eyes. It wasn't hurt. It was something calm and very far away, like a man who had seen enough actual darkness that this specific variety held no mystery for him whatsoever. "You're dropping your left shoulder before you throw the cross," Cole said. Silence. Dylan's expression went through 3 phases in the span of 2 seconds: confusion, disbelief, and then something white-hot. "What did you just say to me?" "Your left shoulder," Cole said. "It drops about 2 inches, telegraphs the punch. Anyone with experience would see it." He paused. Someone at regional level shouldn't have that. The room had gone completely, utterly silent. Marcus, to his credit, was looking at his hand wraps like they'd suddenly become extremely interesting. Dylan walked toward Cole slowly. The way people walk when they want you to understand the distance is intentional. "You," Dylan said, low and controlled and precise, "want to tell me how to fight?" "I didn't say that," Cole said. "You just corrected my technique." "I noticed something. You can do whatever you want with it." "Yeah." Dylan stopped 2 feet from him. "I think what I want to do with it is show you something." He gestured to the ring. "Get in." Petrov appeared from the direction of his office. Cole hadn't seen him come out, but there he was, wiping his hands on a gym towel, reading the scene with the efficiency of a man who'd managed fighters long enough to know exactly when one was about to do something irreversible. "Dylan?" Petrov started. "It's fine," Dylan said, not looking away from Cole. "Old man here wants to coach. I figure he should put some skin in the game." He smiled again, but it didn't reach anything. "What do you say, Cole? Step in the ring with me. 1 round, if you can even move on that knee." Long beat. Petrov looked at Cole with something Cole could only identify as genuine worry. Not the professional liability kind, the actual human kind. "You don't have to do anything," Petrov said quietly. Cole looked at the ring. He thought about Emma at school, waiting in the front office with Mrs. Holloway, probably sitting with her arms crossed and her jaw set. Because she did that when she was angry, same as her mother, exact same posture. And he needed to get there. He thought about the weight of the mop handle in his hands. 40 minutes ago, and the way this floor looked under the floodlights when it was clean, and the way it looked right now, with Dylan's spit drying on the concrete 6 inches from his boot. He set the mop against the wall. "Give me 10 minutes," he said, to no one in particular. He pulled out his phone and called the school back and told Mrs. Holloway he'd be there in an hour. Emma was safe, he just needed a moment. Mrs. Holloway said Emma was fine and could wait, and Cole heard Emma in the background saying, "Dad, you don't have to." And he said, "I'll be right there, Bug. 1 hour." He hung up. He walked to the edge of the ring and looked at it for a moment. Not dramatically, just the way a man looks at something he already knows the answer to. Then he turned to Dylan. 10 minutes, Cole said. "I need to check something in the back." He walked to the break room, pulled his locker open, and stood looking at the shelf inside for a long moment. There was Emma's latest school picture taped to the inside of the door. She was grinning, and one of her front teeth was slightly crooked, and she looked exactly like the kind of kid who deserved a father who had his head straight. He changed into his gym shoes. He rolled his sleeves up to the elbow. He'd been told, by more than one person over the years, that the most dangerous version of Cole Mercer wasn't the one that was angry. It wasn't the one moving fast or making noise. It was the one that went quiet. The one that finished getting ready without drama and walked back out with flat, steady eyes and didn't need to say a single word. He walked back out. The ring lights were already on. Dylan was already inside, bouncing on his toes, shadowboxing loosely, putting on a show for everyone watching from the edges of the room. He'd gathered an audience, all 40 people still in the gym, plus a few who'd wandered in from the lobby when word got around the way word always does. Cole crossed the floor. Someone handed him a pair of gloves. He didn't ask where they came from. He pulled them on, checked the fit, flexed his fingers twice. He climbed through the ropes. And Dylan Cross, 26 years old, undefeated, gleaming under the floodlights, looked across the ring at a 48-year-old maintenance worker with a bad knee and rolled his shoulders and said, "Try not to get hurt, old man." Cole said nothing. He settled into his stance, not the standard kickboxing guard, not a boxing guard, something quieter than either, weight distributed slightly differently, left side forward, hands lower than conventional, which looked wrong to everyone watching, like he hadn't been taught properly. And the room went tight and silent and electric in the way rooms do right before something happens that nobody was ready for. Dylan moved first. He always moved first. And Cole Mercer, who had not been in a ring in 11 years, who had a knee that gave him grief every afternoon, who had a 12-year-old daughter waiting for him in a school front office 11 minutes away, did not move. Not backward, not sideways. He moved forward. And then it happened. Dylan's first punch came fast, and it came hard, and it came exactly where Cole had known it would come. High right cross, left shoulder, dropping 2 inches before release, weight transferring forward onto the front foot with the kind of committed aggression that looked devastating in practice, and had probably put 6 or 7 regional opponents on the canvas inside the first minute. It was a good punch. Technically, it was an excellent punch. The mechanics were sound, the power generation was real, and the speed was genuinely impressive for a man his size. Cole had seen the shoulder drop 3 weeks ago from across a gymnasium floor while pushing a mop. He'd had 3 weeks to think about what came after it. He didn't block the punch. Blocking was for people who needed to absorb force because they couldn't get out of the way of it, and Cole had been trained by people who believed, correctly, that absorbing force was a last resort and never a strategy. What he did instead was something so small and so fast that most of the people watching the ring couldn't fully explain afterward what they had seen. He stepped, not backward, not sideways, but diagonally forward and inside, closing the distance instead of creating it, which was deeply wrong by every instinct a person develops. Watching fights from outside a ring, and the punch passed him on the right side by approximately 4 inches, and the momentum Dylan had loaded into it had nowhere to go except forward and down. Dylan hit the canvas face first, not hard enough to injure him. Cole had made sure of that with the redirect, a slight guide on the forearm, just enough to control the fall, not enough to wrench anything. Dylan was down, and the impact was real, but it was survivable, and Cole stepped back immediately and let him have the space to process what had just happened. The sound in the room was something between a gasp and a collective failure to breathe. Marcus, at the ropes, had his mouth open. He closed it, then opened it again. Dylan planted his palms on the canvas and pushed himself up, slowly. The kind of slowly that meant his body was doing it faster than his mind was ready for, and his mind was working very hard to catch up. He turned around. His face was a new color. Not rage yet. Something before rage, something raw, confusion with nowhere to go. What? He stopped, looked at his own hands like they'd failed him. How did you? Again, Cole said. Dylan stared at him. You want me to go again? Dylan's voice had gone flat in a way that meant the performance was over, the audience forgotten. You just got lucky. Maybe, Cole said. Go again. There was a different quality to the room now. Still silent, still holding its breath, but the silence had shifted, the way air pressure shifts before a storm commits to being a storm. People who had been grinning 30 seconds ago were no longer grinning. Several of them had unconsciously taken one step closer to the ring without realizing they'd moved. Petrov was at the ropes now, both hands gripping the top strand, watching Cole with an expression that was unreadable, except for the tension in his knuckles. Dylan came again. This time he came smarter, or tried to. He feinted left before throwing, set up the combination the way he'd drilled it 10,000 times in this room, jab cross-body kick. The body kick meant to open up the ribs and slow down whatever this old man was doing with his feet. It was the right adjustment. In a normal situation, it would have been the right adjustment. Cole ate the jab, let it graze his forearm, moved with it instead of against it, slipped the cross the same way he'd slipped the first one, inside and forward, and the body kick came around and found nothing because Cole wasn't where the body kick expected him to be. He was 18 inches to the left and slightly behind Dylan's hip, and he put a single palm on the back of Dylan's shoulder and pushed. Not hard, just enough. Dylan stumbled forward 2 steps and caught himself on the ropes and spun around. Stop doing that, Dylan said, and it came out raw enough that it surprised even him. You could see it in his face. The flash of self-consciousness at having said something that honest. Stop telegraphing, Cole said. I'm not telegraphing. Your shoulder goes first every time. It goes before your hand does, before your weight shifts, before anything else moves. It's the first thing that happens, and it happens a quarter second too early. Cole tilted his head slightly. Someone should have fixed that before regionals. The room was very quiet. Dylan's training partner, Marcus, was looking at the floor now, because Marcus knew. Marcus had sparred Dylan Cross 4 days a week for 2 years, and he knew exactly what Cole was talking about, and he had never once said it out loud because saying it out loud had never seemed worth what it would cost him. You're telling me, Dylan said carefully, that you can see my tells. I'm telling you anyone can, Cole said. I'm just the first one who said it to your face. Something moved through Dylan's expression, complex and too fast to fully name. Then it closed down again and the competitive machinery came back online and he rolled his neck and his shoulders and settled back into his stance. Okay, Dylan said. Okay, Cole. And the way he said the name this time was completely different from every time he'd said it before. He came off the ropes like something released. What followed was not a spar anymore. It was an attempt. Dylan Cross went at Cole Mercer with the concentrated, weaponized purpose of a man who had built his entire self-image on being the most dangerous person in any room he walked into, and that image had just been rattled twice in 90 seconds by someone who should not have been able to rattle it, and the only response available to him was to make this so definitive, so overwhelming, so completely one-sided that the last 90 seconds would stop existing in everyone's memory. He came with combinations, real ones, the kind he used in competition, not the demonstration versions, not the controlled sparring versions. Jab, cross, hook body, jab, jab, cross, level change into the clinch, sharp knee to the midsection on the break. He was fast, genuinely, impressively fast. His cardio was a machine. His footwork cut angles the way footwork cuts angles when someone has drilled it until it's unconscious. Cole was bleeding from his lower lip by the second exchange. His knee was not happy about the lateral movement. The second combination had caught him partially. Not cleanly, Cole had managed to roll with most of it, but partially, enough that he felt it across the ribs on the left side in a way that would be a significant bruise by morning. He also wasn't on the canvas. He also wasn't hurt. And he also was not. And this was the thing that was starting to land differently on the people watching from outside the ring. He was not working very hard. That was what was wrong with the picture. That was what nobody could articulate, but everyone could feel, the way you feel when something doesn't add up. Dylan was working at competition level, burning real gas, putting everything he had into combinations that by rights should have been turning this man into furniture. And Cole was moving. Not much, not dramatically, not with anything that looked like athleticism from a distance. Just enough, just exactly enough. Like the space around him was calibrated to the millimeter, and he'd spent the last 30 years learning exactly how much margin was sufficient and how much was waste. It was deeply economical. It was almost boring to watch, if boring meant watching someone dismantle a machine by removing one precise component at a time while the machine continued running and didn't notice what was missing yet. Petrov saw it first. He'd been running a gym for 23 years, and he'd trained fighters, and he'd watched fighters, and he'd seen a particular quality in very rare individuals, the ones who fought as if violence was a language they'd been born speaking. And what he was watching right now in his ring between a 26-year-old champion and a 48-year-old janitor was something that should not have been possible and was happening anyway, and his hands on the ring rope had gone from tense to still. The body kick came from the left this time, faster than the previous ones, and it caught Cole in the midsection before he fully cleared it. He grunted, stepped back, compressed his ribs with one arm and breathed through it, the short, careful breath of someone assessing damage in real time. Not panic, not pain response, something more clinical than that. And Dylan saw the opening and came forward with the right hand, heavy right hand, put everything into it. Cole dropped. Not fell. Dropped. Voluntary, 3 inches straight down, the punch clearing the top of his head by the width of 2 fingers, and came back up inside Dylan's guard, with both arms controlling Dylan's right elbow and shoulder. And it happened so smoothly that the room processed it as one continuous movement, even though it was 3 distinct actions in under a second. Dylan found himself bent slightly forward with his right arm compromised, and Cole's left forearm across his shoulder, and he couldn't figure out from inside it how he'd gotten there, which was deeply disorienting because in his experience he always knew where he was in a fight. Cole released him, stepped back, put 2 feet of space between them. Dylan straightened up, breathing hard, and looked at Cole. And the look on his face was the most complicated thing that had happened in this gymnasium in a long time. "What are you?" Dylan said. He didn't mean it as an insult. He meant it literally. The question of a man recalibrating a situation he'd misjudged at the fundamental level. Cole's lip was swelling. His left ribs were going to ache for a week. His knee had taken 3 hard pivots and was registering its objection in a clear and unambiguous way. "Tired maintenance worker," Cole said. Nobody laughed. Dylan came again, and this time something had changed in his approach, something Cole recognized from a different context entirely. The ego had cracked just enough that the actual fighter underneath it had room to operate. The combinations were shorter now, less committed, more probing. He was reading Cole instead of just hitting at him. It was a better version of Dylan Cross than the one that had started this thing, and Cole noted it without particular surprise. Whatever else the kid was, he was responsive. He learned inside a fight. That was real. The problem was Cole had been learning inside fights since before this kid was born, in environments where the consequence of not learning fast enough wasn't a bruised ego and a canvas meeting, but something permanent and far less reversible. The jab came, Cole rolled it. Cross, he slipped inside. Dylan changed levels. Good instinct. Cole had been defending high. Changing levels was the right read. And Cole did the thing that had been available to him for the last 45 seconds, the thing he'd been letting accumulate. The opening Dylan kept leaving on the right side every time he changed levels, because the left shoulder dipped and the right knee bent inward, and for approximately 3/4 of a second there was a clean angle to the outside of Dylan's lead leg that would put him on the ground with minimal force required. Cole stepped to the outside. His left hand caught Dylan's extended left arm at the elbow. Light, controlling, redirecting without force, and his right foot went to the outside of Dylan's lead leg just below the knee, not a kick, a placement, a hook, a lever, and Cole turned his hips 90 degrees and Dylan went down. Not a slam, not a throw. Something quieter than both of those, a mechanical inevitability, the kind of fall that happens when the geometry of a situation simply runs out of alternatives. Dylan hit the canvas on his back, and Cole came with him, kneeling, and the submission hold arrived the way dawn arrives, without drama, without announcement, just suddenly present. And Dylan's right arm was extended and isolated, and the pressure point at the elbow was engaged, and Cole had all the leverage, and Dylan had approximately none. Cole put his mouth near Dylan's ear. The room couldn't hear what he said. They saw Dylan go still. Not the still of someone giving up. The still of someone who has just heard something that required all available processing power and had none left over for struggling. Dylan's free hand found the canvas and tapped, 3 times. Hard. Cole released immediately. All the pressure gone the instant the tap landed, which was the rule and always had been. And Cole followed it the same way he followed it in training evolutions 15 years ago in water so cold it was supposed to be psychologically prohibitive and wasn't because they'd already done things that were worse. The rule existed because the rule protected people, and Cole had never needed a referee to remind him to follow it. He got up off the canvas. He didn't offer Dylan a hand up. Not because he didn't want to, but because he read correctly that Dylan needed a moment that was his own, needed to get up on his own timeline, and offering the hand would have taken that from him. So Cole stepped back and let the kid breathe and process and push himself up on his own palms, which he did, slowly. The gym was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system Cole had recalibrated 6 weeks ago, pushing air through the ductwork in the ceiling. Dylan stood up. He looked at Cole. He looked at him for a long time, and the expressions moved across his face in sequence. The end of disbelief, the beginning of something harder to name. And then he looked away, and his jaw moved, and he pulled his gloves off and held them in one hand and stood there. Petrov exhaled, a long, quiet exhale that he'd apparently been saving up. Marcus was sitting on the ring apron now, legs hanging outside the ropes, looking at the canvas between his feet with the specific thoughtfulness of a man updating a lot of stored information simultaneously. Cole climbed out of the ring. Someone near the edge of the crowd, one of the younger fighters, 18 maybe, Cole didn't know his name, moved to the side to let him through. And there was something different in the movement. Not deference exactly, just a different quality of attention. Like the space around Cole had changed dimensions. He picked up his work jacket from the folding chair near the equipment closet where he'd left it. He rolled his sleeves back down, checked his phone, 43 minutes since he'd called the school. He still had 17 minutes on the hour he'd promised Emma. He put the jacket on. He was buttoning the second button when he heard Dylan's voice from the ring, still up there, not calling out across the room, but just speaking, not loudly. "Why didn't you just walk away?" Cole didn't turn around right away. He finished the button. Then he turned. Dylan was sitting on the middle rope, arms on the top rope behind him, looking at Cole with something on his face that was closer to a real question than anything that had come out of this kid's mouth in the 6 weeks Cole had been working here. "You could have walked away," Dylan said again. "I was being—" He stopped, looked at the canvas. "I was being an ass. You could have just let it go." "I did let it go," Cole said. 3 times. Dylan absorbed that. "The spit," Cole said. "That's not a technique correction. That's not gym drama. That's something else." Silence. "Yeah," Dylan said, quiet. "Yeah, it was." Cole looked at him for a moment. Then he looked at his phone again and started moving for the exit, because Emma was waiting and the world had a way of requiring him in multiple places at once, and some priorities did not shift. He was at the lobby door when Petrov appeared at his shoulder. The gym owner was a man who did not often seem uncertain, had probably not seemed uncertain since approximately 1994, but something in his face right now was working hard to locate the right category for what it had just witnessed. "Cole," Petrov said. Cole stopped. Petrov looked at him. Really looked at him, the way you look at someone when you realize you haven't been seeing them correctly and you're trying to update the picture in real time. "That shoulder drop," Petrov said carefully, "on the cross. Dylan's had that for 2 years. A pause. 2 years. I've told his coaches. His coaches told him. Nobody fixed it." Cole said nothing. "How long did it take you to see it?" Petrov asked. Cole thought about it honestly. "First day," he said, "but I was mopping." Petrov blinked. Cole pushed the door open and walked out into the parking lot, where the afternoon light was going amber and his car was the third one from the left. And Emma was waiting in a school office 11 minutes away, wondering if her father had lost his mind. He got in the car and sat for a moment with his hands on the wheel. His ribs said hello in a pointed way. His knee offered its own commentary. He started the engine. In the side mirror, he could see the gym entrance, the Blackstone Combat Academy sign above the door, the light inside the lobby, the shape of Petrov still standing where he'd left him, not moving, looking at the door Cole had just walked through. Cole pulled out of the lot and drove. The roads were quiet this time of day, that particular late afternoon lull before the evening commute committed to itself, and he drove the way he always drove, both hands on the wheel, mirror checks at appropriate intervals, no radio, the way he'd learned to move through a world that contained too much ambient noise as it was. His lip tasted like copper. He worked his tongue over it once and left it alone. His phone was in the cup holder. He glanced at it once. No missed calls from Emma, which meant she was okay. Frustrated, probably. Her father had told her an hour and apparently spent part of it doing something in a gym that she would inevitably find out about and have very specific opinions about. She always had specific opinions. She'd gotten that from her mother too, along with the eyes. He turned onto Eastbridge Road. The school came into view, single-story brick, flagpole out front. The parking lot half empty at this hour, a few teachers' cars in the faculty lane. He pulled in and cut the engine and sat for 2 seconds, doing the thing he always did before walking into a situation with an emotional component, which was to locate himself. Both feet on the floor of the car, both hands still on the wheel. The ache in his ribs, which was real, and the ache in his knee, which was real, and Emma inside that building, which was the only thing that actually mattered. He got out. He walked to the front entrance and buzzed the office, and Mrs. Holloway's voice came through the intercom and said, "Come on in," and the door clicked open. Emma was sitting in the waiting area outside the main office, in a plastic chair against the wall with her backpack between her feet and her arms crossed, and her jaw set in the precise configuration that meant she had been waiting long enough to have rehearsed whatever she was about to say. She looked up when she heard him come in. Her eyes went to his lip immediately. "Dad," she said, and the rehearsed speech evaporated completely. She was on her feet. "What happened to your face?" "Nothing," Cole said. "That's not nothing. That's—" She reached up, didn't quite touch it, her hand stopping an inch from his chin. "You're bleeding." "Stopped bleeding," he said. "I'm fine. Are you okay? What happened at lunch?" She looked at him hard, the way 12-year-olds look at parents when they know a deflection is being attempted and they're deciding whether to allow it. Then she made a decision and let it go for now, which was something else she'd gotten from her mother. The ability to table a thing without letting it disappear. "There was a kid," Emma said, sitting back down, and Cole sat in the chair beside her. It doesn't matter. He was messing with one of my friends and I told him to stop and it got kind of loud, and the teacher sent us both to the office." "What did he do to your friend?" "He kept taking her lunch stuff, like taking it and holding it up and laughing," and Emma's jaw tightened. "It was mean. It was just mean for no reason." Cole looked at his daughter. "So you said something," he said. "Yeah." "Good." She blinked. "I got sent to the office." "I know. And?" She looked at him, and something in his face settled her a little, and she exhaled. "And I'd do it again." "Yeah," Cole said. "I know you would." Mrs. Holloway appeared from the inner office with a form for Cole to sign. Standard documentation, no suspension. The other kid had gotten the worst of the administrative conversation. And while Cole signed it, he could feel Emma watching him, specifically watching his lip, and the way he held his left side slightly carefully when he leaned forward to write. In the car on the way home, she was quiet for 4 blocks, which was very unusual for Emma, who had opinions about most things and shared them in real time. Then she said, "Someone hit you." Cole kept his eyes on the road. "Technically, I let someone hit me. There's a difference." "Dad, I'm fine." "Why would you let someone—" She stopped. "Was it at the gym?" "It was handled." "That's not an answer." "It's the answer I've got right now." She looked out the passenger window. The neighborhood was familiar out there. Corner store, the oak tree that had been losing its battle with the sidewalk since before they moved here. The apartment building with the green awning 3 doors down from theirs. "Were you in a fight?" she asked, quiet. Cole thought about the honest answer to that question. "Someone needed a lesson," he said after a moment. "I helped with that." Emma was quiet again. Then, "Did it work?" Cole thought about Dylan's face on the canvas, the tap of his free hand 3 times, hard. The way he'd sat on the ropes afterward and asked a real question with something like genuine confusion in it, like a man who had just discovered a room in a house he thought he knew completely. "I think so," Cole said. "Yeah." Emma nodded once, like she was filing that away. She didn't push further, which surprised him slightly, but when he glanced over, she was looking at her hands in her lap with an expression he recognized. Not worry, something more layered than worry. Pride and concern and frustration all sitting in the same place at once, which was a complicated set of things for a 12-year-old face to hold, and she was holding it fine. She looked up and caught him looking. "You're doing it," she said. "What?" "Thinking about 17 things and pretending you're thinking about 0. He reached over and put his hand briefly on her shoulder, and she leaned into it for just a second before sitting straight again, because she was 12 and working very hard at being older than that. He pulled into the lot on Claremont Street and found their usual spot and cut the engine, and they sat for a moment in the quiet of the car with the engine ticking as it cooled. "Dad?" Emma said. "Yeah. You should put ice on that." "I know. And I'm making dinner tonight because you're going to forget." "I wasn't going to forget." "You were absolutely going to forget." He got out of the car. She was already 3 steps ahead of him, backpack slung over one shoulder, digging for her keys, and he followed her up the walk and watched her find the key on the 3rd try instead of the 1st because she was still talking while she searched. Something about a history project that was due next week. And the door opened and the apartment was warm and smelled like the dish soap she'd used that morning when she'd washed her breakfast bowl without being asked. Cole closed the door behind him. He stood in the entryway for a moment with his hand still on the door handle. 43 minutes ago, he had been in a ring at Blackstone Combat Academy, and a 26-year-old undefeated champion had tapped the canvas with his free hand, and the gym had gone the specific quiet of people absorbing something they hadn't been prepared for. He had not thought about that, not once, the entire drive home. He had not thought about Dylan's face, or Petrov's expression, or the way the room had changed temperature when he stepped through the ropes. He had thought about Emma's jaw set in the plastic chair, and her hand stopping an inch from his chin, and the way she'd said "you're bleeding" with more fear in it than she probably knew was audible. He let go of the door handle. From the kitchen he heard a cabinet open, then the particular sound of the cast iron pan going on the burner. She'd decided on eggs, probably, because it was fast and she knew where everything was. And Emma's voice coming through the wall asking if they had any of that hot sauce left, the good one. "Cabinet above the microwave," Cole called back. A pause. Then, "Found it." He walked to the kitchen doorway and stood there watching her work. 12 years old, her mother's eyes, slightly crooked front tooth, completely serious about the eggs, and stayed there until she looked up and caught him at it. "You're staring," she said. "I'm watching," he said. "There's a difference." She made a face, went back to the eggs. And outside, across the city, in a gym that smelled like rubber and iron and old effort, the floodlights over the ring were still on, and the canvas was empty, and somewhere in that building a young man who had never lost was sitting with the particular weight of a first defeat and trying to figure out what it meant about everything he thought he knew. Cole didn't think about any of that. He got out the plates. The eggs were good. Emma had put too much hot sauce on hers and then refused to admit it, drinking 3 glasses of water over the course of dinner while maintaining complete composure, which was impressive by any standard. Cole ate slowly because his ribs made leaning forward over a plate a considered activity, and he did it carefully enough that Emma only noticed twice and chose to say nothing both times, which was its own form of mercy. After dinner, she did her history project at the kitchen table while Cole read on the couch, or tried to. The book was a paperback thriller someone had left in the break room at the gym 3 weeks ago. He'd borrowed it without announcing the fact, which wasn't entirely honest but felt like a reasonable arrangement. And he'd been on page 47 for 6 days because reading after 8 in the evening required a particular quality of stillness that his brain didn't always cooperate with. He got to page 51 before he realized he'd read the same paragraph 4 times and retained nothing from any of them. He set the book face down on the cushion and looked at the ceiling, the ribs, the knee, the particular sound Dylan's palm had made on the canvas. 3 hard taps, the universal signal for enough. "I'm done. You win." And the way that sound had sat in a completely silent gym like something had been said out loud that changed the meaning of everything preceding it. Cole had not gone looking for that moment. He wanted that on the record, even if the record only existed in his own head. He'd carried mop handles and floor cleaner and the smell of industrial disinfectant for 6 weeks in that building, without once thinking about the ring or the fighters or the championships on the wall. He'd been doing a job. A good job, actually. Petrov's ventilation system had never worked better. But there were lines. He'd learned where his were a long time ago, in environments that were considerably less forgiving than a kickboxing gym in Denton. And the line the kid had crossed wasn't the spit on the floor, though that was bad enough. It was the pattern underneath the spit. The assumption that certain people didn't require basic consideration because of what they appeared to be. Cole had seen that assumption cost real things in real situations, and he didn't have patience for it anywhere, not anymore. Still, he turned it over. He could have managed it differently. From the kitchen table, Emma said without looking up from her notebook, "You're doing the ceiling thing." "What ceiling thing?" "Where you stare at the ceiling and think about whether you handled something right." He looked over at her. She was writing something, head down, hair falling forward. "You don't know what I'm thinking about," he said. "I know you got in a fight, and I know you won, and I know you're not sure if you should have." She looked up then, briefly, and went back to writing. "Am I wrong?" He picked up the book again. "Go back to your project." "That's not a no." "Emma." Okay. The pen moved across the page. Then, a minute later, quieter. "For what it's worth, I think you should have." He didn't answer that, but he also stopped staring at the ceiling. Awesome. I was back at the gym by 6:45 the next morning, which was earlier than his shift required, and he knew it. The building wasn't fully open yet. Petrov arrived at 7. The first training session started at 7:30. But the side door had a code that maintenance staff used, and Cole keyed it in and went through to the supply room and stood in the fluorescent quiet for a moment before starting in on the floors. The main floor was empty. The ring lights were off, just the ambient overheads, and in that light the space looked different than it did in the afternoons when it was full and loud and smelled like everyone who'd ever been in it. It looked like what it was, a large room with expensive equipment and a raised platform at the center where people came to test themselves against each other, which was an old need and a legitimate one when it was managed correctly. Cole ran the mop in his grid pattern and didn't think about the afternoon before and mostly succeeded. He was finishing the far corner near the heavy bags when he heard the side door. Footsteps, specific weight and cadence. He knew it before he looked up. Dylan Cross came through from the corridor, gym bag over one shoulder, still in street clothes. He stopped when he saw Cole. A quick stop. The half-second adjustment of someone who hadn't expected to find the room occupied. They looked at each other across the empty floor. Dylan set his bag down next to the first bench along the wall. He sat down and started unlacing his shoes, and Cole turned back to the corner and finished mopping it. Silence for a while. The ventilation system in the ceiling, the soft sound of the mop. "You're early," Dylan said. "So are you," Cole said. More silence. "Couldn't sleep," Dylan said. Cole moved the mop bucket to the next section. "I know the feeling." Dylan pulled his training shoes on and laced them without looking up. His hands were moving on autopilot. He'd done this so many times the action lived in his fingers, without needing direction from anywhere higher. "My coach is coming in at 8. We've got a regional qualifier in 5 weeks. "I know," Cole said. "It's on the schedule board in the office." Dylan looked up. "You read the schedule board?" "It's on the way to the supply closet." Dylan was quiet again, working the laces. Then, "That thing you did. With the arm. The control thing before the takedown." Cole kept mopping. "That's not kickboxing," Dylan said. "No," Cole said. "It's not." "What is it?" Cole straightened up and looked at him. Dylan was watching him now with the specific attention of someone who had reorganized their entire frame of reference for a person and was still adjusting to the new layout. "It's a couple of things," Cole said. "None of them have a clean name. You learn what works, and you keep it, and you forget where it came from after a while." "Where did it come from?" Cole picked up the bucket and moved it. "A lot of places. Some of them I'd rather not talk about before 7 in the morning." Dylan almost smiled. It didn't complete itself, but it started. "Fair enough." He stood and started toward the bags, then stopped, turned back. "The shoulder thing," he said. "The tell. You said anyone with experience would see it." "I did say that." "Is it fixable?" Cole looked at him for a long moment. "Yes," he said. "But you'd have to take apart the cross and rebuild it, which means drilling something that feels wrong for probably 3 or 4 weeks before it feels right. Fighters don't like doing that in competition season." Dylan thought about that. 5 weeks out. "Bad timing," Cole agreed. "But fixable." "Yes." Dylan nodded once like that was the answer he'd needed and turned toward the bags and started his warm-up. And Cole went back to the floor, and the gym was quiet in the way it was only quiet at this hour, before the day arrived and filled it up. Petrov found Cole in the equipment room at 7:15, inventorying cleaning supplies because he'd noticed the mop head stock was getting low and he preferred to order before it became a problem. Petrov stood in the doorway and watched him count for a moment. "You could have told me," Petrov said. Cole wrote down a number on the notepad he kept in his shirt pocket. "Told you what?" "Who you were. What you were." "I'm maintenance staff," Cole said. "That's what I am here." Petrov made a sound that was not agreement. He came into the room and leaned against the shelf unit along the wall, arms crossed, which was his default posture when something was sitting in him that he needed to say and wasn't sure of the right approach for. "I've had fighters come through this gym for 23 years, Petrov said. "I've had good ones. 3 national champions, 1 professional who made it to a televised card before his knee went. I've watched a lot of people move inside a ring." He paused. "What you did yesterday, the way you moved, I've seen that quality maybe twice in 23 years, and both of those men had careers built on it." Cole said nothing. "So who are you?" Petrov asked. Not rude, genuinely asking. Cole capped his pen. "I told you when I applied. Maintenance experience, some industrial background, references from 2 previous employers. All of it checked out." "It checked out," Petrov agreed. "And none of it told me what I'm apparently looking at." Cole turned and looked at him directly. Petrov held the look without flinching, which Cole respected. "I did other things before this," Cole said. "For a long time. I'm not doing them anymore, and I don't particularly want to talk about them at work because I'm trying to keep this simple." He put the notepad back in his pocket. "I'm good at this job. My floors are clean. Your ventilation works. I show up on time and I don't cause problems." A beat. "Yesterday wasn't my choice." Petrov considered that for a moment. Then, "No, I don't suppose it was." He uncrossed his arms. "The kid had it coming." "The kid needs better coaching," Cole said. "That's what he had coming." Petrov's eyebrows moved in a direction that was somewhere between impressed and mildly annoyed. "His coaches have been working with him for 3 years. I know, they're not fixing the shoulder because they're afraid of disrupting his confidence 6 weeks from a qualifier. And I understand that calculation, but the shoulder's going to get him hurt at the next level. Someone up there will see it inside the first 30 seconds and build their whole game plan around it, and he won't understand what's happening until it's over." Silence. Petrov looked at him with the expression of a man adding things up. "You could fix it," Petrov said. "In 5 weeks. I'm not a coach. You're clearly not just maintenance." Cole picked up the inventory clipboard and held it toward Petrov. "I need an order placed by Thursday, or we're out of mop heads by next week." Petrov took the clipboard, looked at it without reading it. "Think about it," Petrov said. Cole didn't answer that because he was already thinking about it and didn't see any good reason to confirm that out loud. The week moved in its ordinary way. Cole mopped floors and replaced a cracked mirror panel in the second locker room and spent an afternoon recaulking the showers because the sealant along the back wall was failing. And if it failed completely, it became a tile problem, which became an expense problem, which became his problem in a less direct but no less real sense. He watched Dylan train from wherever the work put him in proximity to the floor, which was most places and most times. Dylan's coach was a compact Italian-American named Ferretti, who wore a Yankee cap and communicated largely through gesture and made sounds of various kinds, approving, disappointed, alarmed, neutral, that his fighters apparently read without difficulty. Ferretti was good. Cole could see it in the quality of attention, the way he watched his fighter and noticed things and adjusted the session in real time. He was good, but he was also working inside a system he'd built over years, and he was running low on time, and he'd made a decision to not touch the cross in competition season, and Cole understood the decision even as he watched the shoulder drop, every session, drop 2 inches exactly, reliable as a metronome. On Thursday afternoon, something happened. It started outside Cole's field of vision, a sound first, raised voices in the lobby, the specific quality of volume that was past frustration and into something harder, and then Marcy's voice at the front desk saying something sharp and a door opening with force. Cole came out of the supply corridor in time to see 4 men come through the lobby into the main gym. He took them in with the same automatic assessment that had been running in his background processes for 25 years, and could not be turned off because the off switch had been removed sometime around the third deployment. 4 men, mid-20s to early 30s. 3 of them he did not recognize. The fourth he recognized because the fourth was wearing a team jacket from a gym called Meridian Athletic, which Cole knew was the rival organization that had placed second in regionals behind Blackstone's fighters for the last 2 years running. The man wearing the Meridian jacket was not the problem. He was the context. The problem was the man slightly in front of the other 3, who walked like men walk when they've decided that whatever response they get to their walking is acceptable and they're prepared for all versions of it. Not performing, just ready. There was a difference, and Cole had learned to see it young. His name, Cole would find out later, was Croft. Evan Croft. He had 2 inches and 30 pounds on Dylan Cross, had competed at a higher level than anyone currently training at Blackstone, and had a history with Dylan that Cole did not know the details of yet, but could read the general shape of from the way Dylan, who was at the heavy bags, turned and went completely still when Croft walked through the door. The kind of still that meant he knew exactly who this was and what the last interaction had been, and it hadn't ended well for anyone. "Nice place," Croft said, to the room in general. His voice was easy and large and used to filling spaces. "Little smaller than I remembered." Ferretti had stopped the session. I was on the far side of the ring, standing with his hands in his jacket pockets, reading the situation, the way a man reads a situation when he knows things are about to cost him something, but he hasn't identified exactly what yet. Dylan pulled the bag glove off his right hand, didn't move from his position at the bag. "What do you want, Evan?" "Just came to watch," Croft said. He wasn't looking at Dylan. He was looking at the gym, the equipment, the championship wall, the ring, like he was appraising something. "Heard you had a little trouble in here the other day." Word traveled fast in this community. Cole noted that without particular surprise. "Heard you got dropped by your janitor," Croft said. He said it pleasantly. That was the thing that was worse than if he'd said it with obvious hostility. The pleasantness of it, the way it was packaged as casual observation, which left Dylan no clean target to push back against. Dylan's jaw moved. He pulled the second glove off, set them down on the bench beside the bag. "You should go," Dylan said. "I'm not on your schedule," Croft said. "This a public facility?" "Private membership," Marcy said from the lobby doorway. Her voice was steady. Cole marked that as something worth remembering about her. "Right." Croft nodded slowly, like this was all very interesting and informative. He looked at Dylan. 5 weeks to regionals. You want to show up with Meridian watching you get worked by your maintenance crew? That's fine by me." He smiled. "Honestly, please do." The 3 men with him found this funny in the way men find things funny when they've been cued to. Cole had been standing near the supply corridor doorway through all of this, and he had been doing what he was nearly always doing in this building, occupying a space without announcing it, being present in a way that registered as furniture to people who weren't paying close attention. He'd learned that particular quality of stillness a long time ago in contexts where the objective was to exist in an environment without changing its behavior by existing in it. He watched Croft. He watched the 3 men behind Croft. He watched the Meridian jacket. He watched Dylan, who was crossing the floor now slowly, toward Croft, and in Dylan's body language was the specific readable tension of someone who had made a decision and was past the point of reevaluating it, which in Cole's experience was one of the most dangerous states a person could be in because decisions made in that state tended to cost things that were difficult to return. "Dylan," Cole said. Not loud, not a command, just the name, flat, from across the room. Dylan stopped. He turned and looked at Cole with an expression that was confused and irritated and something else underneath those 2 things. Something that didn't quite have a name but looked like the beginning of a question. Cole moved away from the doorway, walked across the floor at his ordinary pace, not fast, not slow, the maintenance staff walk that nobody in this room except possibly Petrov had ever looked at twice. He stopped 2 feet from Croft, slightly between Croft and Dylan. Not dramatically, just there. Croft looked down at him. Cole was not a small man, but Croft had the size advantage and knew it, and wore it the way people wear advantages they've gotten used to relying on. "Help you with something?" Croft said. Cole looked at him. A long, even look. The kind that goes further in than the face and reads what's actually underneath. Which was something Cole had gotten very good at because the ability to read what a man was actually capable of had mattered in practical ways in his previous life. "You came in here without a membership," Cole said. "Membership's on the board in the lobby. Front desk has the forms. If you're interested, you can talk to Marcy." He gestured toward the lobby door. "Otherwise, the exit's that way." Complete silence. One of the men behind Croft let out a short sound that was almost a laugh, and then caught it and put it back. Croft stared at Cole. "And you are?" Croft said. "Maintenance," Cole said. Croft's eyes moved over him. The gray uniform shirt, the worn work shoes, the mop bucket still visible in the corridor behind him. And the assessment he ran took about 2 seconds and arrived at a conclusion that was visible in the slight relaxation of his posture, the decision that whatever this was, it was beneath direct engagement. "Your maintenance guy wants to throw me out," Croft said to Dylan, amused. "That's cute." "He asked you to leave," Cole said. "I'm telling you." Croft looked back at him. The amusement was still there, but something underneath it had shifted, the way things shift when a situation fails to behave according to the prediction. "You're going to tell me," Croft said. "Yes," Cole said. A beat. 2. The gym, very quiet. The ventilation. The distant sound of traffic outside. "Okay," Croft said. He smiled, wide and certain and not reaching anything above the teeth. "Okay, let me ask you something." He tilted his head. "Are you the guy that tapped Dylan out in this ring?" Cole said nothing. "Because that's interesting," Croft said. "That's actually interesting because we're 5 weeks from regionals and Dylan's supposed to be the top regional hope out of this building. And from what I heard, he got finished by—" He gestured at Cole's uniform. "Whatever this is." He looked at Dylan. "That make you feel good about 5 weeks from now? Your best guy's getting worked by the help?" Dylan said very quietly, "Evan." "What?" "Shut up," Dylan said. Something changed in Croft's face. Very subtle. The entertainment value of the situation had just shifted into something with more edge in it. "Don't tell me to shut up," Croft said. "Then leave," Dylan said. "Or what?" "Your janitor's gonna make me." Cole had been watching Croft's body for the last 45 seconds, with the portion of his brain that ran that particular program. And what it was telling him was this. The man was not going to leave without a resolution that felt like his own choice. And the resolution he wanted was one where he had demonstrated to everyone in this room that the people telling him to leave were not in a position to enforce that instruction. He wanted to establish something. That was what this was. Not a gym visit, not intelligence gathering on regional competition. Establishment of something. Cole understood that impulse very well. He'd spent a significant portion of his professional life going into places where someone had established something that needed to be unestablished, and the mechanics were the same at every scale. You remove the premise. You don't argue about it. You remove it. "I'm going to ask you one more time," Cole said, "to walk back through that door." Croft stepped forward. Not a lunge. A deliberate, close step, designed to collapse the distance to the edge of what was comfortable, designed to communicate physical presence as a form of statement. Cole didn't move. He just looked at Croft from inside the new, shorter distance, and his hands were loose at his sides, and his weight was balanced the way his weight was always balanced when it was balanced correctly. And something in that picture, something in the specific quality of Cole Mercer standing his ground without moving, without posturing, without any visible preparation, landed on Evan Croft in a way that made him hesitate. Just a fraction of a second. But in 25 years, Cole had learned to read fractions. He took one step forward. Croft reflexively stepped back. That was it. That was the entire thing. One step, one retreat. Nothing dramatic, nothing violent, nobody on the ground. Just the moment where a man's confident posture met something it didn't fully recognize and made the automatic, biological, completely involuntary decision to create distance rather than close it. Croft's jaw tightened. "We're leaving," he said to the men behind him. Said it like it was his own idea, which it partly was and partly wasn't. He looked at Dylan. 5 weeks, he said. "I'll see you there." He turned and walked toward the lobby, and the 3 men fell in behind him, and Marcy's voice could be heard in the lobby, making clear that the process for the exit was the same door they'd come through. The gym stayed silent for 4 or 5 seconds after the lobby door closed. Then someone exhaled and the room began to decompress. Dylan was standing where he'd been standing, His arms were crossed. I was looking at Cole with an expression that had gone through several phases in the last 3 minutes and was currently somewhere in the territory of things that needed time to process before they could be discussed. Ferretti, from near the ring, said something in Italian that had the sound of a remark made to no one in particular and wasn't necessarily complimentary. Cole went back to the supply corridor. He picked up his mop. He came back out and started on the section of floor near the heavy bags that needed finishing and had been waiting on him for the last 10 minutes. The mop moved in its grid. The floor came clean in slow parallel strips. His ribs still ached when he extended the mop to the far edge of each stroke, a dull, persistent reminder of the day before yesterday. "Hey," Dylan said. Cole kept mopping. "Cole." He looked up. Dylan was standing at the edge of the clean section. Had stopped himself at the edge, Cole noticed, which was not something he'd done 6 weeks ago or probably at any point in the last 3 years. "What he said," Dylan started, "about you being—" He stopped, started differently. "He was using it to get at me, the maintenance thing, using you to—" "I know what he was doing," Cole said. "It bothered me," Dylan said. "I know that too." Dylan looked at him. "It didn't bother you?" Cole thought about it honestly. "He doesn't know me," he said. "What he thinks about me doesn't have any weight." Dylan was quiet for a moment. "How do you do that?" he said. Not rhetorical. A real question from someone who had been bothered by smaller things for his entire adult life and couldn't figure out the mechanism of not being. Cole moved the mop to the next section. "Takes practice," he said. "That's not a real answer. It's the best one I've got." Cole looked at him. "Go back to your session. Ferretti's waiting." Dylan looked toward his coach, who had, in fact, resumed his position near the ring with the patient expression of a man who had learned over decades that fighters contained a great deal of weather that needed to pass on its own schedule. Dylan turned back. Something in his face, a question half-formed, unasked. "The qualifier," he said. "Croft's going to be there." "I know." "He's better than me right now," Dylan said. Flat. Not self-pity. A factual assessment with real difficulty in it. The difficulty of saying a true thing out loud that you'd been not saying. "On current form, the way I'm fighting, he's better." Cole let the mop be still for a moment. "I know that too," he said. "So what do I do?" The question hung there between the clean floor and the industrial ceiling and the floodlights over the ring and 47 years of combined experience in this building and all the distance between what a man was and what a man could become if the right things got addressed in the right order with enough time and the willingness to take apart something you'd built and put it back together differently. Cole looked at him. "You fixed the shoulder," Cole said. Dylan blinked. "In 5 weeks." "Starting tomorrow morning," Cole said. 6 a.m., before your regular session. A long beat. "You'll do that," Dylan said. "I'll do it 3 times a week," Cole said. "You do it every day." He picked the mop back up. "And you don't spit on my floors again." Dylan looked at him for a long moment, and whatever moved through his expression then was complex enough that Cole didn't try to read all of it, just noted the parts that were visible, the ones that looked like something unfamiliar and a little uncomfortable, the particular look of a person encountering a quality they weren't expecting from a direction they hadn't been looking. "Yeah," Dylan said. "Deal." He went back to Ferretti. Cole finished the floor. The afternoon moved on around him. The thud of bags, the rhythm of footwork on the canvas, Ferretti's voice making its shorthand corrections. And Cole worked through it the way he'd worked through all of it, steady and unremarkable and present. And the floor came clean in sections, and the ache in his ribs said what it said, and the knee said what it said, and the ventilation system ran exactly the way it was supposed to run. At 5:15, he signed out and got his jacket from the break room and walked through the lobby, and Marcy looked up from behind the desk and started to say something and then seemed to change her mind and just nodded instead. He nodded back. In the parking lot, the evening air was cooling off, and the sky to the west had gone the orange-pink of a day finishing its business, and Cole unlocked his car and got in and sat for a second. Tomorrow. 6 a.m., 3 times a week. He was aware this was not what he'd planned. He was aware that straightforward was a quality his life consistently failed to maintain, regardless of how clearly he stated his intention to keep things simple. I was aware that something had started in this building that was not finished, and that the version of himself that had spent 11 days watching a talented young fighter with a fixable flaw and said nothing was gone now and was not coming back. He started the car. He had 17 minutes to get home before Emma started dinner without him, which she would do without drama and without complaint, and without acknowledging that she'd noticed he was late, because she was 12 years old and had already become, in the specific way that children become when circumstances require it, a person of considerable and quiet dignity. He pulled out of the lot. Behind him, through the windshield in the rearview mirror, the Blackstone sign over the door caught the last of the evening light and held it for a moment before Cole turned the corner, and it was gone. The 6 a.m. session started on a Friday. Cole was there at 5:50, which was not a deliberate statement about punctuality, but simply the result of waking at 4:30 the way he always woke at 4:30, regardless of intention or exhaustion or how good the previous evening had been. His brain had been set to that hour by years of operational schedules and had never fully reset. He'd made peace with it. The early mornings were quiet, and quiet was a resource he'd learned not to waste. He ran the mop over the main floor first, not because it needed it badly, but because the activity organized him, and he thought better when his hands were occupied. The ring lights were off. The building was empty except for the hum of equipment on standby and the ventilation doing its work overhead. He finished the floor in 20 minutes, put the mop away, and stood at the edge of the ring looking at it. He hadn't planned to end up here. That wasn't a complaint. Plans and Cole Mercer had a long history of mutual non-compliance. Just an observation. 6 weeks ago, he'd been a maintenance worker at a kickboxing gym. He was still a maintenance worker at a kickboxing gym. What had changed was that he'd apparently agreed, somewhere between the parking lot and the rearview mirror and 17 minutes of evening driving, to spend 3 mornings a week doing something he hadn't done in 11 years with a 26-year-old who'd spit on his floor. He heard the side door at 6:02. Dylan came in looking like a man who had not slept particularly well and had made himself come here anyway, which Cole recognized as a form of discipline more honest than the easy kind. He had his bag, his gear, a paper cup of coffee that was already half gone. He stopped when he saw Cole standing at the ring. "You're already here," Dylan said. "I'm always already here," Cole said. Dylan looked at the ring, then at Cole, then finished the coffee and dropped the cup in the trash by the door and came across the floor pulling his gear out of the bag. He wrapped his own hands. Cole watched the wrap job, noted it was good, competent, the kind of wrap that came from someone who'd done it 10,000 times, and climbed through the ropes without ceremony. Cole followed. He stood across from Dylan in the ring without gloves, without gear of any kind, which Dylan noted and didn't comment on. Cole pointed at the heavy bag hung inside the ring for demonstration work. "Cross," Cole said. "Your standard." Dylan threw it. Left shoulder dropped 2 inches, weight came forward, good hip rotation, clean contact. Technically excellent by any conventional standard. The tell was there. Visible. Exactly where it always was. "Stop there," Cole said when Dylan was through the motion. "Did you feel it?" "Feel what?" "Feel what?" "The shoulder." Dylan frowned. "My shoulder's fine." "Your shoulder moved before your hand did," Cole said. "You felt it as preparation for the punch. I'm asking if you felt it as a separate event, the shoulder moving first, then everything else." Dylan threw it again, slower, and this time he was actually trying to feel what Cole was describing rather than just performing the punch. And halfway through the motion, he stopped. "There," he said, surprised. "There," Cole said. "It goes early." "It goes early," Cole confirmed. "By the time your hand leaves, any experienced opponent already knows it's coming. Not consciously. They don't think, oh, the shoulder. They just react to it. Their body reads it and answers it before the punch arrives." Dylan straightened up, ran the motion again in slow motion, watching his own shoulder. "I've been throwing this cross for 8 years. "I know. It's worked." "At regional level," Cole said. "Against opponents in your weight class who are good but not exceptional. It's worked because your speed makes the tell survivable. It's early, but not early enough that a good regional fighter can consistently capitalize on it." He tilted his head. "National level is different. There are people at the next tier who read tells the way you and I read words. By the time you load the punch, they've already moved." Dylan was quiet, working the shoulder motion with his hand, feeling the sequence. "So I need to initiate from the hip," Dylan said slowly, "and let the shoulder follow instead of lead." Cole looked at him. "Yes," he said. That's exactly right. Dylan glanced up, caught the look. What? Nothing, Cole said. You got there faster than I expected. I've been doing this for 8 years, Dylan said. I understand what I'm doing. I just never... He stopped. Nobody ever made me feel it from inside before. They'd say your shoulder's dropping, and I'd think, yeah, okay, and then I'd throw the punch and it would land and it seemed fine. Because it was fine, Cole said, at the level you were at. The problem with getting good at something is that your weaknesses stop costing you until they suddenly cost you everything at once. Dylan worked the motion again, this time deliberately initiating from the hip, keeping the shoulder passive until the rotation brought it through naturally. The first few attempts were mechanical, the forced quality of someone overriding muscle memory with conscious instruction. It looked wrong because it was right, which was the particular torture of rebuilding a technique. It feels slow, Dylan said. It is slower, Cole said. Right now, because you're thinking about it. In 3 weeks, you'll stop thinking about it and the speed will come back. In 5 weeks, it will be faster than what you had before because the power chain will be cleaner. You sound pretty sure about that. I've seen it happen, Cole said. When? Cole picked up the pad from the corner of the ring and held it in his left hand, angling it for the cross. Again, he said. Dylan threw it. Cole adjusted the pad angle. Again, and again, and again. The session found its rhythm, Dylan throwing, Cole adjusting and correcting, and occasionally stopping the motion with a single word or a hand placement that communicated more efficiently than explanation. They worked for 40 minutes without stopping except to adjust. Dylan's shirt was soaked through by the 30-minute mark. The new cross was coming together, slowly and imperfectly, the way good things come together. At 6:50, Cole lowered the pad. Your regular session starts in 40 minutes, he said. That's enough for today. Dylan was breathing hard, hands on his knees for a moment, then straightening. Same time Monday? Monday and Wednesday, Cole said. You drill it yourself Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. 10 minutes minimum before your regular warm-up. Don't make it a big event. Just 10 minutes, slow, feel it. And Friday? Rest the shoulder Friday, Cole said. Let it consolidate. Dylan unwrapped his right hand, working at the tape. He was looking at Cole with the particular attention of someone who keeps arriving at the same question and keeps deciding not to ask it. He asked it this time. Where'd you coach before this? I haven't coached before this, Cole said. Then where'd you learn? I was taught by people who were very good at it, Cole said. Under circumstances where not learning fast enough had real consequences. He climbed down from the ring. That's as specific as I'm going to get. Dylan watched him. Military, he said. Cole picked up the pad case and set it on the equipment shelf. People keep landing on that, Cole said. Because it's obvious, Dylan said. The way you move, the way you read a room, the way you stood in front of Croft yesterday, like you'd already calculated every version of what he might do and decided none of them were particularly concerning. He paused. That's not gym training. That's not even competition training. That's something else. Cole looked at him. I'm a maintenance worker, Cole said. That's what I am here. I need you to understand that and respect it. I do respect it, Dylan said. He stopped. I feel like I've been training in this gym for 3 years, and I just met someone who knows things about fighting that nobody in here has ever mentioned, and you're mopping my floors. Someone has to, Cole said. What? The second person who found him was Ferretti. It happened the following Tuesday, late afternoon, Cole restocking the equipment closet off the main hall. The Italian coach appeared in the doorway with his Yankee cap in his hand. He was holding it, which meant he'd taken it off, which meant this was a conversation he was treating with a specific level of seriousness. Petrov told me about the morning sessions, Ferretti said. Cole kept stacking towels. Petrov talks. He's worried about liability, Ferretti said. Unofficially. He won't say anything officially because you fixed his ventilation and his floors are cleaner than they've been in a decade. A pause. I'm not worried about liability. I'm worried about my fighter. Cole turned around. Dylan's doing fine. Dylan is throwing a different cross than he was a week ago, Ferretti said. His regular sessions, I'm seeing him think about his shoulder before every combination. It's slowing him down. That'll pass, Cole said. You know this how? Not hostile. A direct question from a man who took his work seriously and was encountering something that might be helping or might be interfering and wasn't sure which yet. Because it always does, Cole said. He's overriding 9 years of muscle memory. It's going to feel wrong and run slow for another 2 to 3 weeks. Then it consolidates and the speed comes back. He held Ferretti's look. I know it's disruptive to his regular prep. I'm sorry for that. But the tell needs fixing before nationals, or someone is going to take him apart with it. Ferretti was quiet for a moment. I know about the tell, he said. I know you know. I made a call, Ferretti said. Season's too short to rebuild a technique under competition pressure. I disagree with that call, Cole said, and said it directly, without softening it, because Ferretti was a professional and professionals deserve direct disagreement rather than diplomatic avoidance. Ferretti looked at him. A long look. You disagree with my call? Yes. You've been coaching fighters for how long? I haven't been coaching fighters, Cole said. I've been responsible for people who needed to be highly functional under pressure, and the process of getting them there has overlap with what you do. Responsible for people, Ferretti repeated, turning that phrase over. What does that mean? It means what it means, Cole said. Ferretti put his cap back on, adjusted it. He had the look of a man recalculating something he thought he'd already finished calculating. 5 weeks, he said. I know the timeline, Cole said. If it's not consolidated by 2 weeks out, then we stop the drill and go back to the original, Cole said. Dylan and I agreed on that already. Ferretti's eyebrows moved. You and Dylan agreed. Yes. When did my fighter start making training agreements without talking to me first? When someone gave him a reason to, Cole said. That's not meant as criticism. That's just what happened. Silence. The equipment closet was small, and the two men were filling it with a quality of tension that was not quite hostile but was certainly not relaxed. I want to watch a session, Ferretti said. Come Wednesday, Cole said. 6 a.m. You can watch as long as you don't interrupt. Ferretti considered that. The condition was slightly insulting, and they both knew it. Fine, Ferretti said. What? Ferretti came Wednesday and stood outside the ring and watched without saying a word for 50 minutes. Cole ran the session the way he'd run the first one. Pad work, isolated drills, the shoulder correction built into every repetition, Dylan's new hip-first initiation sequence, getting fractionally more fluid with every round. Halfway through, Cole stopped the drill and made Dylan throw the new cross at full speed 3 times back-to-back, and Ferretti watched the shoulder, and the shoulder stayed. Not perfectly. There was still a ghost of the old movement in it, a slight early twitch that would take another 2 weeks to fully iron out. But it was a fraction of what it had been, and it was shrinking visibly. Ferretti said nothing. When the session ended and Dylan climbed out of the ring and went to the water station, Ferretti walked to the ring apron where Cole was putting away the pads. Where did you train? Ferretti said. But it's a long story, Cole said. I'm asking as a professional courtesy. Cole looked at him. U.S. Navy. Operational instruction for close quarters scenarios. Unarmed combatives training and assessment. 7 years as instructor candidate and instructor. He set the last pad in the case. After that, deployment. After deployment, I was done. Ferretti absorbed that. His expression went through several adjustments. SEAL program? Related, Cole said. That's a non-committal answer. That's the most I'm going to say about it in a gym in Denton at 6:50 in the morning, Cole said. Ferretti was quiet for a moment, then made the Italian sound again. The one Cole had heard near the ring when Croft walked out. This time it sounded different, less dismissal, more something like involuntary respect that the speaker found slightly inconvenient. He's going to be better, Ferretti said. Not a question. Yes, Cole said. For regionals. That I can't promise, Cole said. Croft is good. I've watched him on video from last season and he's legitimately good. Dylan's going to be better than he was. Whether better than he was is better enough than Croft depends on a lot of things I can't control. But the shoulder. The shoulder gives him a real chance instead of a compromised one, Cole said. That's all I can give him. Ferretti nodded slowly. Then, you should be coaching professionally. I'm maintenance, Cole said, but thank you. Ferretti made the sound a third time and walked away. What? It was Marcy who broke the story, though she didn't intend to. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, the waiting room near the front desk. Two of the junior fighters, early 20s, sitting in the chairs by the door talking while she processed a membership renewal at the desk. She was only half listening until one of them said Cole's name, and then she was fully listening. "Guy used to be Special Forces or something," the first one said. "Where'd you hear that?" Ferretti told Marcus, and Marcus told everyone. Ferretti said Special Forces? He said Navy, something classified. Said the guy's a legitimate combatives instructor. The second fighter was quiet for a moment. "He mops floors, though." "I know." "That doesn't make sense." Marcy set down the membership form and decided this was not her story to shape. But she did go find Petrov and tell him what she'd heard, because it seemed like information the building's owner was better equipped to manage than a 23-year-old front desk employee. Petrov called Cole into his office that afternoon. The office was small and overfull. Paperwork on every surface, a filing cabinet that didn't close all the way, a framed photograph of Petrov's first regional champion on the wall beside a dry erase calendar covered in training schedules. Petrov sat behind his desk, and Cole sat in the chair across from it, the chair that faced the wall with the championship photograph. And Petrov looked at him for a moment in the particular way of someone who has been holding a conversation in his head for several days and is now ready to have it in reality. "People are talking," Petrov said. "People talk," Cole said. "About you specifically." Petrov laced his fingers on the desk. "Ferretti told Marcus you have some kind of classified military background. Marcus told his training partners. Now half the gym is—" He made a gesture, speculating. Cole looked at the championship photo. The fighter in it was young, mid-20s, holding a belt that was almost comically large. Big grin. Petrov's hand on his shoulder, considerably younger, both of them squinting into the flash. "I can't control what people talk about," Cole said. "No," Petrov said. "But you could control what I know, which would at least let me have an accurate version to work with." He held Cole's look. "I'm asking you directly, not as your employer managing a liability situation, as someone who has had you in this building for 6 weeks and has been operating on incomplete information." Cole considered him. Petrov was not a man who asked this kind of thing lightly. He'd had 6 weeks to ask it and had waited until it was necessary, which was a form of respect that Cole recognized and tried to return in kind. "Cole Mercer," Cole said. 48 years old. Retired U.S. Navy, E8, Master Chief Petty Officer. "I was assigned to DevGru for the last 7 years of my service, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Most people call it SEAL Team 6, though that name is technically outdated and the community mostly dislikes it." He paused. "Before that, 11 years active duty, 3 combat deployments, 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. Instructor duty in between. I held a top-secret clearance with SCI access, and I haven't held any clearance since I separated, which was 4 years ago." The office was very quiet. Petrov did not change expression dramatically. He was a man who'd seen enough of life to absorb information without performing a reaction to it. But something shifted in his posture, a very slight forward adjustment, like a man who had just found solid ground where he'd expected soft. "DevGru," Petrov said. "Yes." I know what it is," Cole said. "And I know what it isn't. It isn't something I talk about. It isn't something I want on the board in the lobby. And it isn't something I need this building to know about to do my job effectively." He met Petrov's eyes. "I separated because I had a daughter who needed a father more than the Navy needed another operator. I moved here because the school district is good, and the cost of living is manageable, and the gym was hiring. That's all there is." Petrov looked at him for a long moment. "Your wife," he said carefully. 4 years ago," Cole said. "Before I separated." "I'm sorry." "Thank you." Silence. The dry erase calendar on the wall had tomorrow's date circled in red. Qualifier prep, Cole assumed, some kind of specific milestone in Ferretti's training plan. "The morning sessions with Dylan," Petrov said. "Unofficial," Cole said. "Off the clock, not a coaching arrangement, not a liability for the gym." Dylan asked, "I'm helping. It ends when regionals end." "And after regionals?" "After regionals, I'm maintenance staff," Cole said. Petrov looked at his desk. He picked up a pen and set it down again without writing anything. "The gym could use someone like you," Petrov said. "Formally. In an actual coaching capacity." "I appreciate that," Cole said. "The answer is no." "Why?" Because I came here to be a maintenance worker, and that's what I intend to stay. He paused. I'm good at it. I like it. It doesn't follow me home. Being a coach wouldn't follow you home? Cole thought about Emma's face when she'd seen his lip, the way she'd said you're bleeding with more fear in it than she probably intended. Everything follows me home eventually, he said. I try to be careful about how much. Petrov nodded slowly. He didn't push it, which Cole had by this point come to expect from him and was genuinely grateful for. The Croft situation, Petrov said, from yesterday. That could have gone differently. Yes, Cole said. But it didn't. No. Because of you. Because Croft made the right calculation, Cole said. I didn't do anything. He thought about how to say it accurately. I was present in a specific way. The rest was his choice. You stood in front of him, Petrov said, between him and Dylan. You stood there and you looked at him and he left. He made a smart decision, Cole said. He made a smart decision because of the way you looked at him, Petrov said. I was watching. I saw his face when you stepped forward. That man has faced down competitors in national-level events, and he took one look at you and decided he had somewhere else to be. Cole said nothing. That's not normal, Petrov said. That's not something most people can do. Most people haven't done what I've done, Cole said. It wasn't pride in his voice. It was just information, delivered factually, with the mild tiredness of someone who'd lived inside a reality for long enough that stating it plainly required less energy than finding a diplomatic version. Petrov looked at him for the last time in the specific way he'd been looking at him throughout this conversation, the look of a man revising a long-held picture. And then he sat back in his chair, and the office returned to the ordinary weight of a gym owner's afternoon. The mop heads, Petrov said. Did you put the order in? Yesterday, Cole said. They'll be here Monday. Good. Petrov picked up a pen again and this time actually used it, making a notation on the calendar. And the showers in the main locker room. Ferretti says there's a temperature issue. There's a mixing valve that's running slightly off, Cole said. I ordered the part. Should be in by Thursday. Good. Petrov wrote something else. That's all. Cole got up. He was at the door when Petrov said, without looking up from whatever he was writing, Cole. Cole stopped. Emma, Petrov said. That's your daughter's name. Yes. She sounds like she's good. Cole stood at the door with his hand on the frame. She is, he said. She's very good. He went back to work. The story hit the wider gym population in pieces over the following week, the way stories always spread in closed communities, in fragments, with distortions, gathering detail at some points, and losing it at others. By the end of the week, most people in the building knew that Cole Mercer had some kind of serious military background, that the nature of it was classified, or at least not being discussed, and that Ferretti had apparently seen him work with Dylan and had come away from the experience looking like a man who had just been handed a correction he hadn't asked for and wasn't entirely sure how to incorporate. What they did with that information varied. The younger fighters mostly added it to the story of the ring. He'd already been the guy who tapped Dylan, and now the backstory had arrived to explain it, and the explanation, while still incomplete, was enough to reframe 6 weeks of mop bucket and supply closet into something that made a different kind of sense. They didn't become deferential exactly, but something shifted. Eye contact that hadn't existed before. Doors held. The water station emptied before he got to it. The senior fighters were more thoughtful. Marcus, who was perceptive in the quiet way of people who listen more than they speak, found Cole in the parking lot one afternoon and walked next to him for a moment without saying anything, and then said, "The shoulder thing, on Dylan's cross. I knew about it." "I know you did," Cole said. "I didn't say anything because—" He stopped. "You didn't want the conversation it would start," Cole said. Marcus looked at the pavement. "Yeah." "That's understandable," Cole said. "Is it?" Cole thought about it honestly. "No," he said. "Not really, but I understand how it happens." Marcus nodded. He looked like a man who had just received a mild verdict on something he'd been sitting with for a while and was working out whether he agreed with it. "I'm going to say things earlier," Marcus said, "going forward, if I see something." "That'll make you a better training partner," Cole said, "and probably a more annoying one." "Those things are compatible," Cole said, and Marcus made a sound that was the first real laugh Cole had heard from him. What surprised Cole, actually surprised him, in the quiet way that genuine surprises tend to arrive, was Dylan. Dylan said nothing to anyone about the morning sessions. He didn't explain them, didn't contextualize them, didn't position himself as the fighter, getting personal instruction from the gym's mysterious new operator. He simply showed up at 6 a.m. on Monday and Wednesday and worked, and went to his regular sessions and did the drill work and his warm-up with no announcement. And when people noticed his cross-changing and asked him about it, he said he was working on some technical stuff and left it there. It was restrained in a way Cole hadn't expected from him. He mentioned it briefly one Wednesday morning when they were finishing the session and Dylan was cooling down on the ring apron. "People are asking about the cross," Cole said. "I know," Dylan said. "You're not telling them much." "It's not their business," Dylan said. He unwrapped his left hand. "You asked me to keep this low-key. I'm keeping it low-key." Cole looked at him. "I didn't ask you to." "You didn't have to," Dylan said. He looked up. "You don't want the gym talking about who you are. I get it. You've been here 6 weeks trying to just work, and I made that harder." He went back to the rap. "Least I can do is not make it harder again." Cole said nothing for a moment. "The cross is getting cleaner," he said. "I know," Dylan said. "I can feel it now." Without thinking. The hip goes first and the shoulder just comes through. It's starting to feel right. 2 more weeks and it'll feel natural, Cole said. "And then regionals." "And then regionals," Cole said. Dylan was quiet for a moment, hands still on the wrap. "You're going to be there," he said. "Right? At the qualifier." Cole hadn't thought about it. "I wasn't planning on it," he said. Dylan looked at him. Something in his face, not asking exactly, not pressuring, just present. An expression that left room for something without demanding it. "You don't have to," Dylan said. He stopped. "Never mind." "Say it," Cole said. Dylan looked at the floor of the ring, the blue canvas, the worn patches near the center where most of the contact happened. "You're the only person who's told me a true thing about my fighting in 3 years," he said. "That's a strange thing to say. I know Ferretti's good. He's really good. I'm not saying he isn't. But the shoulder thing, I had that for 9 years and nobody made me feel it. You made me feel it in 40 minutes. He looked up. "I'd like you to be there. That's all." Cole stood with that. It was a simple thing and a real thing, and it sat in the air between them with the uncomplicated weight of something that had been said straight. "I'll see," Cole said. Dylan nodded. "Good enough." He climbed down from the ring and picked up his bag and headed for the locker room, and Cole stood in the empty ring for a moment in the early morning quiet. The ventilation, the ambient hum, the day not yet started outside the building's walls. He looked at his hands. Taped knuckle on the right from 3 sessions ago when the pad had shifted and he'd caught the frame. A small thing, barely noticeable, mostly healed. His knee was okay this morning, one of the better mornings. His ribs had finished talking about the spar with Dylan, which was a relief. 48 years old, retired, widowed, raising a 12-year-old in a 2-bedroom apartment on Claremont Street. Standing in the ring at 6:50 a.m. in a kickboxing gym he cleaned for a living. He climbed out. Put the pads away. Got the mop from the supply corridor. The floor needed doing before the 8 o'clock session, and the mixing valve in the main shower still needed the replacement part installed when it arrived, and at some point this week he needed to check the load-bearing bracket on the heavy bag in the far corner because he'd noticed a stress crack in the mounting plate that was going to become someone's problem if he let it develop. He started mopping. The morning came through the high windows in the east wall in long, flat angles, catching the dust motes moving slowly through the air above the ring, and the mop moved in its grid, and the floor came clean in strips, and somewhere across the city, Emma Mercer was waking up and making her breakfast with whatever opinion she currently had about the day, and Cole worked through the quiet with both hands and let the morning be what it was. The mixing valve arrived on Thursday, as expected. Cole pulled it from the delivery box in the supply room, checked the part number against the order, confirmed it matched, and spent the next 40 minutes in the main locker room shower installation with a wrench and the particular focused patience that plumbing required. The patience of someone who understood that forcing things that required easing was how you created bigger problems downstream. The new valve went in correctly on the second attempt. The first attempt had the temperature bias running 2 degrees hot, which was within acceptable range but not within Cole's range. So he pulled it and reset the calibration and ran the water for 3 minutes to confirm before reassembling the housing. When he came out, Marcy was at the supply corridor door looking for him. Petrov wants you, she said. Shower's fixed, Cole said. Tell him the water will run slightly cold for the first 30 seconds until the new valve's heat-soaked, but after that it'll be normal. Okay, Marcy said. He still wants you. Petrov's office again. Cole sat in the same chair. This time Petrov had a piece of paper on the desk between them, turned so Cole could read it from his side. It was a typed letter, short, on Blackstone letterhead. Cole read it. It was a formal offer of employment in a coaching and technical advisory capacity, part-time, starting after the regional qualifier, with a salary figure that was more than twice his current hourly rate calculated annually. He read it twice. Then he set it back down. You didn't need to type it up, Cole said. I'm a formal man, Petrov said. I told you the answer was no. You told me the answer was no before you spent 3 weeks working with Dylan and before Ferretti came to me and told me, and I'm quoting directly here, that you have a quality of instruction he hasn't encountered outside of elite-level professional preparation. Petrov folded his hands on the desk. Ferretti has trained fighters for 31 years. He doesn't say things like that. I'm glad he found it useful, Cole said. The answer is still no. Why? Cole looked at the letter. Clean formatting, Petrov's signature at the bottom in blue ink. Because coaching is a relationship that goes home with you, Cole said. You carry your fighters, you carry their problems, their injuries, their decisions, their fights. You're available to them at hours that aren't work hours. It becomes part of how you understand yourself. He paused. I have a daughter who's 12 years old, and I'm raising her alone. My job ends at the end of my shift, and then I go home and I'm a father, and that's the only thing I am from the moment I walk through that door. I'm not willing to compromise that. Petrov was quiet. The mornings with Dylan, he started, were temporary, Cole said, and contained. I set the schedule, I held the boundary, it ends after regionals. He met Petrov's look. A formal coaching role doesn't work that way, and we both know it. Petrov looked at his desk. He picked up the letter and looked at it and set it down again. Emma, he said, the same way he'd said it in their last conversation, with a particular care. Yes, Cole said. How old is she really? 12. She turns 13 in February. And she's good? You said she's good. She's the best thing I've ever been part of, Cole said, and I've been part of some things. Petrov smiled then. A real one, slow, the kind that lives in a face that doesn't use it often. So, all right, he said, no formal role. He picked up the letter and folded it in half. But I'm keeping this, in case you change your mind in a year. You can keep it, Cole said. I won't change my mind. People surprise themselves, Petrov said. Sometimes, Cole said. Not about this. The regional qualifier was held on a Saturday, 3 weeks later, at the Hargrove Center, a mid-sized arena on the east side of the city that hosted combat sports events. 4 or 5 times a year and smelled like every arena of its kind, the particular compound of matte rubber and metal rigging and the anticipatory sweat of people who hadn't competed yet. Cole drove himself. He hadn't told anyone he was coming, which meant he arrived to find a text from Dylan already waiting on his phone. You here? Sent 11 minutes ago, which meant Dylan had been looking for him. He texted back. In the east lot. He found a seat in the elevated section along the north wall, which gave him a sight line to both corners and the full ring, and he sat down with a coffee he'd bought at the concession stand that was aggressively mediocre and drank it anyway. Emma was with her friend Joanna today, a standing Saturday arrangement that had been in place for 2 months, and that Emma managed with the logistical confidence of someone who had been handling her own social calendar since she was 9, which she more or less had. He told her where he was going. She'd said, "So you're going to watch the guy you beat go fight someone else?" "I'm going to watch someone I helped prepare go compete," Cole said. "That's a nicer way to say the same thing." "It's a more accurate way," Cole said. "There's a difference." She'd looked at him for a moment with that layered expression. "Is he going to win?" "I don't know," Cole said honestly. "But you think he might?" "I think he has a real chance that he didn't have a month ago," Cole said. "That's different from a prediction." Emma had nodded, slowly, like she was filing this under something. "Okay," she said. "Text me." "You'll be at Joanna's." "I'll have my phone," she said. "Text me." The arena filled gradually over the next 2 hours. Cole watched it fill with the mild attention of someone who had learned to be comfortable in crowds without needing them. The early bouts ran on schedule. Regional qualifiers operated with more discipline than their reputation suggested, the timekeeping tight, the officials professional. Cole watched 3 preliminary bouts with the same analytical attention he applied to most things, noting what was working and what wasn't, the specific tells and habits and defensive patterns that manifested differently under competition pressure than they did in a training environment. He saw Ferretti arrive with Dylan and the corner team at 40 minutes before the main card. Dylan was in the zone he went into before competition. Cole had seen it in the gym, the particular internal gathering that serious athletes did, the narrowing of aperture, everything non-essential put aside. He was wearing headphones and looking at nothing and moving through the arena with the focused automatism of someone whose body knew how to arrive at a fight even when the mind was elsewhere. He saw Cole anyway. 20 meters across a crowded arena concourse, Dylan saw him, and something in his face shifted. Not dramatically, just a slight release of tension somewhere around the jaw, the way a person relaxes a muscle they didn't know they were holding when something they'd been uncertain about resolves. He nodded once. Cole nodded back. That was enough. Evan Croft was in this building. Cole saw him during the second preliminary bout, across the arena in the competitors section with the Meridian team, 3 of his people around him, his team jacket on. He was watching the bout in progress with the professional attention of someone evaluating what they'd face later in the evening. He hadn't seen Cole, or if he hadn't connected the figure in the elevated north section with the maintenance worker from Blackstone. That was fine. Cole watched Croft watch the fight. Read his posture, the specific quality of his attention. The man was good. He'd said so to Dylan, and he'd meant it. Legitimate skill, legitimate preparation, legitimate competition record. He was also 28 years old and had 3 inches on Dylan and a longer reach and had been fighting at this level for 2 years longer. What Croft didn't know was that the shoulder was gone. Not perfectly gone. Cole was honest with himself about that. There was still a ghost of it in Dylan's maximum effort combination sequences, a faint trace of the old habit in the moments when his body went fully automatic and his conscious override wasn't fast enough to intervene. Cole had seen it twice in the last week of training and had told Dylan, and Dylan had felt it too, and they drilled it another 40 minutes and it had gotten smaller. Small enough that you'd have to know exactly what you were looking for. Croft didn't know. Dylan's bout was 3rd on the main card. Cole finished his coffee and watched the first 2 main card bouts, and the second one was genuinely good. 2 evenly matched fighters who had done their homework on each other, a full 5 rounds that required actual judging rather than a stoppage. The crowd was into it. The arena had that quality it got when the people in it were watching something real rather than waiting for something real to start. The 3rd bout was announced and Dylan came out first, and the Blackstone section of the crowd, maybe 30 people, Petrov in the front of their section with his arms crossed the way he stood when he was trying not to show he was nervous, got loud in the specific way of people who are supporting someone they've watched earn this. Croft came out second, and the Meridian contingent answered, and the arena did the arithmetic of the 2 contingents against each other and landed somewhere in the middle, a full crowd noise that didn't clearly favor either corner. Cole watched Dylan in the ring during the introductions. He was still in the zone, still internally gathered, still moving with the focused economy of someone whose whole body had been organized around the next 25 minutes. He looked like a fighter. He'd always looked like a fighter. What was different now was something subtler, a quality of settlement in the shoulders, an absence of the performance layer that had previously lived on top of his confidence, the layer that was about convincing the room. He wasn't convincing anyone of anything right now. He was just there. Croft was watching him from across the ring with the measured attention of a man who had done his research and was filing last-minute observations against it. The referee brought them to center. The bell rang. Croft came out fast, which Cole had expected. The Meridian fighters' competition pattern was to establish early, pressure in the first minute, test the response, and build the game plan from what he found. Dylan moved well in the opening exchange, used his footwork to stay off the ropes, picked his moments. Croft was probing, throwing combinations but not committed ones, looking for the tell, looking for the shoulder. Cole saw him look for it, saw the specific angle of Croft's attention between exchanges, the way he was watching Dylan's left side. The educated, experienced read of a fighter who had been briefed that there was something there to find. Someone on the Meridian team had done their own homework. Dylan threw the cross twice in the first 90 seconds. Both times the shoulder stayed. Both times Croft's read of Dylan's left side found nothing to work with, and Cole could see the micro-adjustment in Croft's posture each time. The slight recalibration of a man whose prediction had failed to confirm. By the end of the first round, Croft was doing something Cole recognized. He was revising his game plan on the fly, which was a skill, a real skill, but it was also expensive. It cost processing. It meant he was thinking when he should have been reacting. Between rounds, Cole watched the corners. Ferretti was calm, specific, 3 points, and done. No speeches, no emotion, just information delivered efficiently. Croft's corner was more animated, which told Cole they were more disrupted than the fighter's face was showing. Second round, Dylan landed the cross clean for the first time. Not the counterpunch version, not the follow-up. The initiated cross, hip first, shoulder through, and it arrived on Croft's guard with a sound that the elevated north section felt more than heard, a quality of impact that made the Meridian contingent go briefly, involuntarily quiet. Croft took it well. He was durable and his chin was solid, and he moved with the shot instead of against it. But he felt it, and more importantly, he hadn't seen it coming in the way he'd expected to see it coming. And that gap between expectation and reality was visible in the quarter-second delay in his response that would not have been there if the shoulder had dropped the way his research said it would. Dylan pressed the second round, not recklessly, contained, structured, Ferretti's influence visible in the discipline of the pressure, but genuinely forward. He was finding range. The cross was landing at a rate that shouldn't have been possible against someone with Croft's defensive skill, and it was landing because the tell was gone, and Croft's defensive read had been built around a version of Dylan Cross that no longer existed. The third round was the hard one. Croft made the adjustment that good fighters make. He stopped looking for the tell and started playing a different game, inside work, clinch, shorter combinations, try to neutralize the cross by not giving Dylan the space to throw it. He was very good at this. His inside work was genuinely excellent, and he controlled 2 of the first 3 clinch exchanges and landed body shots in the third that Cole could see Dylan absorb with visible effort. Dylan's left side tightened. His movement got slightly less fluid in the last minute of the round. The ribs, probably. Same side where Cole had caught him in the gym a month ago. Cole watched Dylan manage it without letting it show in his face, which took a specific kind of discipline. He did it. Fourth round, Croft was ahead on points. Not dramatically, close enough that the fifth round could settle it either way, which was exactly the kind of math that forced a fighter to make decisions he hadn't planned to make. Croft came out in the fourth looking to extend the lead, which was the right strategy for someone who believed he was ahead and wanted to protect that. He came out active, volume, pressuring Dylan off his back foot, and Dylan did something Cole hadn't taught him, something that wasn't in the morning sessions, wasn't in the pad work, wasn't in anything they'd drilled. He stopped retreating, planted his feet in the center of the ring, and took 2 of Croft's shots on his guard and didn't move. Just absorbed them, stayed there. And Croft, reading the sudden stillness as an opening, committed to the right hand. Heavy, loaded, the same shot he'd been landing on the inside for the whole round. Dylan slipped it inside. Not the same way Cole had slipped Croft's pressure in the gym lobby. His own version, less technically refined, messier at the edges, but real. He slipped inside and his right hand was already moving, and the cross landed on the left side of Croft's guard at a range that was shorter than Cole would have chosen, but that Dylan apparently trusted, and it landed clean. Croft moved back 2 steps. The crowd volume changed. Not a finish. Croft was not that kind of fighter. He wasn't going down from 1 punch in the 4th round. That wasn't who he was. But something had shifted in the ring, some balance of authority that had been running in one direction since the middle of the 2nd round was now running in a different one, and the arena could feel it even if most people in it couldn't have articulated exactly why. Dylan pressed, controlled the round. Won it clearly enough that there wasn't much ambiguity in the corner reactions between 4 and 5. The 5th round was 2 men running on fumes and will and whatever they'd banked in their preparation for exactly this moment. Cole watched it without much expression, without the physical tension he could see in Petrov's section and in the Blackstone crowd. Not because he didn't care, because he'd already done what he could do, and what was happening in the ring now was between Dylan and Croft, and the 31 minutes of fighting they'd already been through, and Cole's function in any of it had ended the last morning he'd held the pad and said, "Good, that's it, that's the one." The final bell rang. The decision went to the judges. Cole watched Dylan while they waited. The young fighter was on the stool in his corner, Ferretti on one side, the cutman on the other, and his chest was heaving and there was a small cut over his right eye that the cutman had done his best with, and his ribs on the left side were going to be a significant problem tomorrow morning. He was looking at the canvas between his feet with the expression of a man who had given everything available to him and was now waiting to find out if it had been enough. The announcement came through the arena PA in the flat official language of sport decisions, and the split decision landed on Dylan's name. And the Blackstone section went loud in the way 30 people go loud when they've been wound up tight for 25 minutes, and something just released the spring. Dylan stood up. He didn't perform a victory. He didn't pose. He looked at Ferretti, who put both hands on the side of his face, and said something close, just for him, and Dylan nodded, and the referee raised his hand, and the crowd gave him what crowds give, and he let them, standing with his hand up and his ribs aching and the cut over his eye seeping through the cutman's work. And he looked like a fighter who'd won a hard fight, which was exactly what he was. Cole got up from the elevated section. He worked his way through the crowd toward the floor level, taking his time, letting the post-fight movement of the arena set the pace. His knee preferred this, the slow navigation rather than the press, and he had no particular hurry. The result was in. The work was done. He found Dylan in the corridor outside the competitors section 15 minutes later, when the immediate crowd around the winner had thinned to the corner team and Petrov and a few others. Dylan's eye had a fresh strip of tape over it, and he was holding an ice pack to his left ribs, and he looked like he'd been in a war, which he had been, by the scale of the thing. He saw Cole and the ice pack dropped slightly. "You came," Dylan said. "I said I'd see," Cole said. "That's not the same as saying you'd come." "No," Cole said. "It isn't." Dylan looked at him, and in his face was a complicated thing. Relief and exhaustion, and the specific rawness of a man whose adrenaline had finally started to fall and left everything unprotected underneath it. "The fourth round," Dylan said. "The slip inside. I don't know where that came from." "You do," Cole said. "It's been in there. You just hadn't needed it before." "You didn't teach me that." "No," Cole said. "That was yours." Dylan looked at the floor. The ice pack went back to his ribs. "He was better than me on points through 3 rounds. I know that." "Yes," Cole said. "I got lucky in the 4th." "You made a decision in the 4th that required nerve and timing, and you executed it under pressure," Cole said. "That's not luck. Luck is when something happens to you. That was something you did." Dylan was quiet. "The shoulder," he said. "He was looking for it." "I know." His corner had it on film. He came in there knowing about it. "I figured," Cole said. "It didn't matter." "Because you fixed it." Cole looked at him. "Because you fixed it. I just made you feel it." Down the corridor, Petrov had detached from the group and was making his way over with the particular expression of a man who had just watched a very good hour of sport and was deeply satisfied and trying to look like he hadn't been nervous at all for any of it. He stopped next to Cole and looked at Dylan, and then looked at Cole and said nothing for a moment. "The cross," Petrov said finally. "The cross was different." "The cross was fixed," Dylan said. Petrov looked at Cole. Cole looked at the corridor wall. "Maintenance," Petrov said. "That's right," Cole said. Petrov shook his head once, the slow shake of a man who has encountered something that consistently refuses to fit the available categories, and clapped Dylan on the shoulder carefully, avoiding the ribs, and told him to get his eye looked at properly tonight, and not just the tape job. And Dylan said yes, Petrov. He knew, and Petrov moved off to find Ferretti. Dylan and Cole stood in the corridor for a moment, just the two of them, the arena noise coming through the walls as the main card continued. "What happens now?" Dylan said. "For you." "I go home," Cole said. "Emma's at her friend's. I told her I'd text when it was over." "And Monday?" "Monday I'm at the gym at 6:45, Cole said. "Floor needs doing before the 8 o'clock session." Dylan looked at him. "That's it? After all of—" He stopped. "You're just going back to mopping." "I never stopped mopping," Cole said. "Cole." "The floor doesn't clean itself," Cole said. And I'm good at it. I like it. It's honest work. Dylan looked at the floor of the corridor as if seeing that specific detail for the first time. Then he looked up. Thank you, he said. Flat and simple and real, no performance in it. Cole held the look. Get your eyes seen tonight, he said. Ice the ribs for 20 minutes on, 20 off until you sleep. Don't skip the off cycle. It matters. That's medical advice, Dylan said. It's maintenance advice, Cole said. Same thing. He turned and walked down the corridor toward the arena exit, his knee doing what his knee did, the crowd noise diminishing as he moved away from the main hall and into the quieter corridor that led to the east exit and the parking lot beyond. He pushed through the door. The night air outside was cool and clear, and the lot was full, and his car was the third from the left the way it always was. He unlocked it and got in and sat for a moment with his hands on the wheel. He took out his phone. Split decision. He won. Emma's response came back in 40 seconds. I knew it. Then 4 seconds later, did you eat anything? He put the phone in the cup holder and started the car. The weeks after regionals were quieter, which was what he'd needed and hadn't known how to ask for. Dylan began training for the next level with Ferretti and a revised preparation schedule that Ferretti had restructured, not around what the old Dylan could do, but around what the new cross allowed, which opened combinations that hadn't been viable before because the tell had made them too readable. Cole watched the sessions when his work put him in proximity to the floor, which it usually did, and saw the improvement accumulating the way improvements accumulate when the foundation is sound, steadily, without drama, occasionally visible in a single moment that made Ferretti stop and make the Italian sound. He didn't run any more morning sessions. The deal had been through regionals, and he honored it, and Dylan hadn't asked him to extend it, which Cole respected. What happened instead was something smaller and more durable. The gym changed, not dramatically, not in a way that would be visible to someone arriving for the first time. But Cole had been there long enough to know the texture of the place at different times of day and different stages of the week, and something in the texture had shifted. The younger fighters trained differently, a little harder, a little more honestly, a little less preoccupied with the room's attention, and a little more preoccupied with the actual work. Marcus had started speaking up in sparring sessions when he saw something, which sometimes cost him a moment of awkwardness, and which he managed with improving grace. Marcy at the front desk had taken on more responsibility of her own initiative and was talking to Petrov about eventually moving into a management role, which Petrov was open to in the way he was open to good things happening in his building. Ferretti stopped by the supply corridor one afternoon in the third week after regionals, while Cole was inventorying the cleaning stock. Dylan's throwing the cross at a pace I haven't seen from him, Ferretti said. Faster than before the rebuild. You said that would happen. I said it usually does, Cole said. You were right. Thank you. Ferretti was quiet for a moment. I owe you something. An acknowledgement. Cole looked at him. You don't. You came in here and saw something I'd been working around for 2 years and you fixed it in 3 weeks, Ferretti said. I'm a professional, and that's a professional acknowledgement, not a personal apology. I wasn't undercutting you, Cole said. I know that now, Ferretti said. I was resistant because of how it arrived, unsolicited, from a... He stopped. From maintenance, Cole said. Yes, Ferretti said, and there was no defensiveness in it, just the clean admission of a man who had looked at something honestly. From maintenance, which shouldn't matter and did matter, and I'm aware that's a problem with me, not with you. Cole nodded. I appreciate that. Ferretti adjusted his cap. If you ever want to work with fighters in an official capacity, I know where to find you, Cole said. Ferretti nodded, turned, walked away. Cole went back to inventory. What? The moment that stayed with him happened on a Wednesday evening in the 4th week after regionals, closing time, gym emptying out. He was doing the last floor pass of the day, the long diagonal run along the main floor, finishing in the corner by the equipment closet, when he heard someone behind him. He turned. Dylan was there, in street clothes, bag over his shoulder, heading out. He'd stopped a few feet from the edge of Cole's wet floor, which he always stopped at now, had stopped at since the day Cole mentioned it to him, 3 months ago in what felt like a different era. There was someone with him, a girl, maybe 8 years old, with Dylan's eyes and a backpack with a cartoon bear on it, holding his hand and looking at Cole with the complete unguarded attention of a child who had not yet learned to pretend she wasn't looking at things that interested her. "My daughter," Dylan said. "Nina. She comes on Wednesdays now. Her mom has a late shift. She hangs out in the office." Cole looked at the girl. Nina looked back at him with level, curious eyes. "Hi," Cole said. "Hi," Nina said. "Are you the one that my dad says fixed his fighting?" Dylan's jaw tightened slightly. "I said he helped with my training." "You said he fixed it," Nina said, without any particular drama, just reporting accurately. Cole crouched down to her level, which his knee registered and he ignored. "I noticed something," he said. Your dad did the work." Nina considered this with the seriousness of an 8-year-old processing important information. "Okay," she said. Then, "Do you have kids?" "I have a daughter," Cole said. "She's 12. "What's her name?" "Emma." "That's a good name," Nina said. "My name's better, though." Dylan made a sound that was the specific parental sound of trying not to visibly agree with something your child has said. Cole stood up. His knee said what it said. "Nina," Dylan said, "go get your jacket from the office. It's cold out." Nina looked at Cole once more with the frank, evaluating look of a child who had reached a conclusion, nodded once as if confirming it, and went toward the office. Dylan watched her go. Something in his face that was the same thing Cole saw in his own face sometimes. In mirrors he didn't expect, in windows at certain angles, in the occasional photograph Emma took that he didn't know she was taking. "She comes here twice a week now," Dylan said, "since the schedule changed." He paused. "She likes it. She watches the training sometimes. She told me last week she wants to learn." "How old is she?" Cole said. 8. A pause. "What's the right age to start?" "Depends on what you want her to learn," Cole said. "Technique or principle?" "What's the difference?" "Technique is what you do," Cole said. "Principle is why you do it. Principle first is better. Technique is easy to add. The other way around takes longer." Dylan looked at him. "You could teach her," he said. "She'd respond to you. I can tell." "Dylan, I know. Maintenance." He almost smiled. "I'm just saying, it's an open offer." Cole looked toward the office, where through the glass he could see Nina retrieving a red jacket from the hook by the door with the confidence of a child who knew exactly where her things were. "Tell her to come find me on Mondays," Cole said. 10 minutes before you start your warm-up. I'll show her some basics." Dylan went very still. Then he looked at Cole the way people look at things they weren't expecting to get. "Okay," he said, quiet. 10 minutes, Cole said. "That's all." "Okay," Dylan said again. Nina came back with her jacket on, already zipped, businesslike. She took Dylan's hand and looked up at Cole. "Bye," she said. "Bye, Nina," Cole said. She gave him the nod again, the evaluating, conclusive nod. Then she and her father walked out through the lobby, and the door closed, and the gym was quiet. Cole turned back to the floor. The mop moved in its grid. The last section came clean in slow parallel strips, the wet sheen of the floor, under the overhead lights reflecting the ring and the equipment and the empty space of the building at the end of its day. His knee ached. His hands were steady. The ventilation ran clean and even overhead. He finished the last strip, wrung the mop, put the bucket away. He turned off the lights in the supply corridor, walked through the main floor in the dim state the gym held after closing, still lit, just quiet, the ring under its amber work lights, the heavy bags still, the championship banners along the wall casting the faint shadows of things that represented real effort and real cost. He got his jacket from the break room. He stopped at the door. He didn't know why he stopped, just something in him that wanted one more second of the particular quality of silence that a gym held at the end of a day when the people who'd filled it had gone home, the stored energy of it, the specific residue of everything that had been worked for in that space, deposited in the walls and the floor and the air of it, the way years of effort deposit in a place that holds it. He turned the last light off and walked out. The parking lot was empty except for his car, the night air cold enough to see his breath. He unlocked the door and got in and sat for the usual moment with his hands on the wheel, and then he took out his phone. On my way, he texted Emma. He started the car. The drive home was 11 minutes, give or take, depending on traffic, and he knew every turn by feel now, knew the corner with the oak tree, losing its fight with the sidewalk, knew the building with the green awning, knew the particular sound his parking spot made under the tires of this car. He knew what was waiting when he got there. A 12-year-old who would have opinions about dinner that she would present as questions, who would ask about his day with genuine curiosity and follow-up questions, who would do her homework at the kitchen table with the focused efficiency of someone who found the work interesting rather than burdensome, who would at some point in the evening look up from whatever she was doing and catch him looking at her and say, "You're doing it again," and he would say, "Doing what?" And she would describe it precisely, and he would not be able to argue with the description. He pulled out of the lot. Some victories don't come with belts or decisions or raised hands in arenas. They come at 11 minutes past closing time, in a car that smells like cleaning solution and industrial rubber, driving toward a 2-bedroom apartment on Claremont Street where a girl with her mother's eyes is waiting with the particular patience of someone who has learned, young and earlier than she should have needed to, what it looks like when someone who loves her is on the way home. That was the fight Cole Mercer had won. Not in a ring, not in a corridor, not in 5 weeks of early mornings with a mop handle and a pad, and a 26-year-old who needed someone to tell him a true thing. The one he'd won every single day since Sarah, one foot in front of the other, no applause, no audience, nothing but the work and the girl waiting at the end of it. The real measure of a person isn't what they do when everyone is watching. It's what they do when no one is, and they do it